Chapter 1046. After thinking for a while, Xiaoqin handed the spatial rings to Ao Jiao and got her to sort them out. He also handed the spatial rings of the two Sun Palace elite disciples and the young master of the Heavenly Treasure Pavilion to Ao Jiao. The items in the spatial rings were all over the place, so organizing them took a lot of time. Since Ao Jiao could help, Xiaoqin was naturally happy to do so. Xiaoqin still had more important things to do. He needed to merge the solar true flame and the purple thunder true fire and cultivate the thousand frost battle snow. After the heavenly laws took form, he still needed to stabilize them and make the final preparations for breaking through to the blue-robed emperor. When the time was right, he would immediately start forging the bridge to heaven. All these would require at least 2 months of closed-door cultivation. The blue-robed emperor was a bridge that connected to the other shore, a bridge to heaven that opened the emperor's door. The chasm between heaven and earth was extremely vivid. One step across it was the difference between heaven and earth. From then on, Xiaoqin would be reborn, reaching the top of the world's pyramid in one step. Most cultivators in the world would not be able to reach this chasm and see the emperor's door on the other shore. From martial disciple to martial master, martial grand master, martial saint, martial king, martial monarch, and martial sage, Xiaoqin had spent 12 years cutting his way through all the obstacles. Now, he finally reached a level that countless people could not reach in their lifetimes, standing before the chasm between heaven and earth. Outsiders would not know how many life and death situations Xiaoqin had experienced and how much bitterness he had suffered. No one could imagine that Xiaoqin could not cultivate normally until he was 16. He was several years slower than regular cultivators and at least 10 years slower than those outstanding talents. However, Xiaoqin relied on his tenacious perseverance to endure unimaginable loneliness and solitude. Finally, he overtook most of the outstanding talents of the Kunlun continent. He took the lead and stood before the chasm between heaven and earth. It was like what Xiaoqin had always believed in, a person's talent only determined how fast they could go. Only perseverance determined how far they could go. On a desolate island in the calm sea, Xiaoqin sat cross-legged. As long as he calmed down, he could enter a wondrous state. A natural barrier that seemed to have been cut off by someone appeared before him. At the end of the barrier was a clump of fog. Xiaoqin did not know how far away it was. He could vaguely make out a golden door in the fog. This was the emperor's door. When he finished building the bridge, the emperor's door would appear in reality. The path to heaven descended, and brightly colored heavenly flowers descended to receive him. Then, the Xiaoqin would send down the heavenly road and bring him up. Xiaoqin sank his consciousness into his dantian. The 10,000 dragon-shaped heavenly sage laws all gave off a crystalline light. His potential as a martial sage had already reached its limit. He could no longer make any progress. Even if a Holy Spirit vein or a King's Spirit vein was placed before him, he would not be able to absorb it. Only by transforming the heavenly sage laws into the higher-level heavenly laws, becoming compatible with the world and returning to the natural state, could one continue to improve. In Qin had sovereign, Qin had spirit Wu Ao Qi to Ling. On the other hand, he had spirit Wu Ao Qi to check if his potential had reached its limit. This was very important. If Xiaoqin had not reached its limit, he had to find out what potential he could dig out. Otherwise, if Xiaoqin started transforming his heavenly laws, he would suffer a great loss. At that time, as a blue-robed emperor, he would be much weaker than the other outstanding talents. For example, before Xiaoqin's heavenly laws took form, there were only 5,000 of them. If Xiaoqin had transformed his heavenly laws at that time, he would have lost half of his heavenly laws, becoming a blue-robed emperor and regretting it. Ao Jiao, who was helping Xiaoqin tidy up the many spatial rings, felt startled when she saw Xiaoqin's heavenly sage laws. Back then, the Thunder King's heavenly laws had also taken form. However, he had reached his limit with only 7,000 heavenly laws. Now, Xiaoqin had reached this level and had 3,000 more heavenly sage laws than the Thunder King. With such a level, Ao Jiao guessed that even in the ancient era, when the martial epoch was at its most glorious, Shao Chen would have ranked at the top, surpassing most of the predecessors. Furthermore, Shao Chen had a peak rank 4 sage body and cultivated both his physical body and his heavenly laws. It was hard to imagine how far Shao Chen could go in the future. Sovereign Martial Emperor, Prime, or even higher, the martial god realm that only appeared in legends. Seeing that Shao Chen had no intention of opening his eyes, Ao Jiao was startled. Could it be that Shao Chen was planning to enter the blue-robed emperor realm now? However, after thinking about it, this was normal. Shao Chen's cultivation had fallen for 3 months before recovering. Everything came naturally when the conditions were right. There would not be any unstable cultivation or unstable foundation. Since ancient times, there had never been a great grandmaster-level martial sage who severely injured themselves, causing their cultivation to fall and cultivating bitterly again when they were about to enter the blue-robed emperor realm. No one dared to take such a risk with their hard-earned cultivation. Shao Chen managed to reach this step because of Neptune's crown and coincidentally. Now that Shao Chen knew the benefits of breaking through to establishing himself, he dared to attempt to enter the blue-robed emperor realm at this moment. Otherwise, even if Shao Chen was beaten to death, he would not have purposely severely injured himself, causing his cultivation to fall to martial monarch. Shao Chen thought about his initial predicament on the Purple Cloud warship, where 10-odd martial monarchs held their weapons to his neck. He nearly died at the hands of a minor character like a martial monarch. If word got out that the Blue Dragon King fell because of this, he would become a laughingstock, mocked for thousands of years. Days passed. At some point in time, motes of electric light fell on Shao Chen's body, increasing in number until they formed a large electric cocoon surrounding him. Ao Jiao did not find this strange. Many years ago, the Thunder King had reached this step as well. While joy appeared on Shao Chen's face, there was also some worry. Normally, there would not be any danger in transforming heavenly sage laws into heavenly laws. However, if one rushed it, one might end up in a state of berserking chi deviation and die. Don't be too anxious because of the pressure of re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. Ao Jiao felt very frustrated. As she watched Shao Chen charge to enter the blue-robed emperor realm, she felt even more anxious than the Thunder King back then. The Thunder King was alone with no worries. However, Shao Chen carried the title of the Qing Emperor's descendant along the way, shouldering the heavy burden of re-establishing the Dragon's Gate. The pressure of the two could not be mentioned in the same breath. Pa! After much difficulty, Ao Jiao managed to clear out most of the treasures. Then, she sent out a palm strike and scattered the treasures everywhere. As Shao Chen looked at the electric cocoon, his eyes filled with worry. The more he thought about it, the more afraid he became. If Shao Chen knew about this, he would definitely not know whether to laugh or cry. After a long time, a trace of calmness flashed in Ao Jiao's eyes as she turned around. Then, she tidied up the scattered treasures. She blew off the dust on them and sorted them out. He was meticulous and orderly, and there was no longer any trace of frustration on his face. He only buried his worry deep in his heart. Eastern Sea, Neptune's old subordinates, in a secret room of a palace in the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's territory, when Ling Xiaofan read the news he had just received, his expression turned gloomy. Neptune's daughter, Princess Qin, lay quietly among the flowers beside Ling Xiaofan, sleeping quietly. Shao Chen had destroyed a blue-robed emperor with 3 punches, sent the small perfection blue-robed emperor flying with 1 saber strike, and finally used his trump card to kill 8 blue-robed emperors with 1 saber strike. Ling Xiaofan did not feel surprised at Shao Chen's sudden increase in strength. He continued to calmly calculate and plan in his heart. Shao Chen carefully read every single word of the news again. Then, 2 crucial scenes appeared in his mind. After swallowing 10 peak spirit veins, Shao Chen's strength suddenly soared, and he used the Qing Emperor's medallion to kill 8 blue-robed emperors. The former meant that Shao Chen's strength soared in such a short time. He needed to cultivate quietly to stabilize his cultivation. Shao Chen was definitely still in the Cloud Sea domain and could not have gone far. The latter meant that the talisman that the Thunder King gave Shao Chen had already been used up. Adding the two together, the conclusion was that this was the best opportunity to kill Shao Chen. Shao Chen did not have a talisman and was cultivating. If he waited for Shao Chen to stabilize his cultivation, it would be even more difficult to kill him. Aside from some exceptions, Leng Xiaofan's guess was close to the truth. This was a rather difficult person to deal with. After a while, Leng Xiaofan sent an order to his subordinates. Tell the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace that they only need to send out 3 blue-robed emperors to search for desolate islands within 250 kilometers of where the treasure mountain appeared. Then, they will be able to find the cultivating Shao Chen. After killing the target, he does not want the Neptune crown or all the treasures on Shao Chen. However, he must keep the Neptune crown for him. If there is any exchange, the other party can make any requests. There were many conflicts between the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas. Everyone wanted to be the boss, to gather all the old subordinates of Neptune. As the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon King's descendant, Leng Xiaofan held great authority in the Eastern Sea Divine Dragon Palace. However, he could not order the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace around. However, as long as Leng Xiaofan passed this news to the other party, the Neptune crown on Shao Chen would automatically attract the other party to do as he said. The sparks of lightning on the desolate island were like rain, never stopping since the start. The purple lightning cocoon lost its initial bright color and turned a deep purple. The various treasures in the spatial ring were already organized. Ao Jiao propped up her chin, her gaze never leaving the lightning cocoon. It has been 2 months. Shao Chen has already accumulated enough. When the conditions are right, success will follow. Logically speaking, the conversion of his heavenly sage laws should have reached consummation long ago, Ao Jiao muttered. Ao Jiao muttered softly. However, she also relaxed. 2 months was enough to show that Shao Chen did not panic or rush things. Shao Chen still sought speed with stability. As long as nothing unexpected happened, Shao Chen was confident of advancing to the blue-robed emperor realm. If nothing unexpected happened, Shao Chen should be able to break out of the cocoon soon. Just as Shao Chen thought this, Ao Jiao suddenly frowned. She gently slapped the ground and stood up. Then, she looked into the distance. There were 3 powerful auras in front of them. They were rushing over quickly, and the strength of each of them was not weaker than any of the 8 city lords. 3 small perfection blue-robed emperor experts working together to charge over. They really know how to pick the right time to make their move. Ao Jiao's expression turned frosty as a murderous intent brewed in her eyes. She stretched out her hand, and the lunar shadow saber stabbed into the ground beside Shao Chen silently flew into her grasp. Chapter 1047. Shao Chen turned her head back to look at the lightning cocoon and sighed, I just knew that this fellow would not be peaceful after he becomes the blue-robed emperor. Shao Chen's figure flashed, and Ao Jiao hugged the lunar shadow saber as she landed beside the lightning cocoon. Her figure slowly dimmed and finally vanished into thin air, as though she was no longer there. Buzz! The 3 blue-robed emperors of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace wore black dragon robes and withdrew their auras. They landed firmly on the desolate island, their eyes filled with excitement as they looked at the lightning cocoon not far away. What a fellow! The information that Leng Xiaofan brought is indeed correct. This Shao Chen is really on a desolate island within 250 kilometers. Furthermore, he actually chose this time to make his breakthrough to the blue-robed emperor. The youth on the right, the blue-robed emperor, laughed softly as he carried a saber on his back. The lightning cocoon was a sign of a lightning-attributed cultivator making his breakthrough to the blue-robed emperor. Combined with the information that Leng Xiaofan brought, there was no need to guess. There was no need to guess. It was definitely Shao Chen inside. Ha! Being able to obtain Neptune's crown and offer it to the Dragon King is a great merit. The tall, skinny, black-haired youth on the left could not hide his joy. Only the white-haired old man in the middle showed a calm expression. He remained silent as he looked around cautiously. He raised his hand and pointed, and an ice sword chi shot out from his fingertip. The moment the sword chi appeared, frost immediately covered the ground. Clearly, his will of ice had reached an extremely high level. The crystalline sword chi looked solid. When the sunlight shone on it, it gave off a boundless glow. This made the sword chi that flashed by look like a beam of light flying out of his hand. Keng Chang. When the sword chi struck the lightning cocoon, it gave off a melodious clang. Electric light flickered, and the ice sword chi turned into mist and vanished. The huge lightning cocoon did not budge at all, not a single crack appeared. The three were stunned at the same time, feeling incredulous. The blue-robed emperor, who carried a saber on his back, was flabbergasted. What a strong lightning cocoon! What kind of accumulation did this fellow have for him to make his breakthrough to the blue-robed emperor? I'll go smash him. The tall and skinny blue-robed emperor had a fiery temper. He took a step forward and was ready to kill his way through. The white-haired old man said solemnly, "Ping Jun, be careful." "Ha, don't worry, old Cheng. He's at a critical moment now. Even if he knows that we're here, he'll be helpless. He's dead for sure today." The blue-robed emperor named Ping Jun laughed madly without a care in the world. Indeed, if Shao Chen were to stop attacking the blue-robed emperor at this moment, all his previous efforts would be in vain, but he would definitely suffer serious internal injuries from the recoil of the laws. No matter how one looked at it, fighting against three lesser-tier blue-robed emperors with a weak body was a hopeless situation. However, if he did not give up, he would only become a dead target. Passively receiving attacks from others would also result in death. No matter how one looked at it, it was a dead end. There was no possibility of survival. From tens of thousands of kilometers away, Ling Xiaofan managed to push Shao Chen into desperate straits with just a few words. This person's stratagem could be said to be unparalleled. Unfortunately, everything in the world had a chance of survival. Out of 50, 9 out of 40 would be used. Even if one was gone, there would always be a chance of survival. This chance of survival for Shao Chen rested on Ao Jiao. Ping Jun's figure flickered, and a red light flickered on his body. The clouds in the sky churned, and strong winds blew. Horrifying energy flowed out of the heavenly law imprint in his body and gathered in his body. His body merged with the sky. As he flew over, he merged with the world. Then, he suddenly attacked and punched. The energy that Shao Chen drove seemed to move the entire world. This was the strength of the blue-robed emperor. He returned to his natural state, merging with the world and forming heavenly laws. Every move of his could bring out the power of the world. It looked like the horrifying attack was about to strike the lightning cocoon. If the berserk energy struck it, the lightning tribulation would definitely shatter. Shao Chen, who was in the middle of it, could not continue even if he wanted to. He could only allow the blue-robed emperor to stop attacking and suffer the backlash of the law energy. However, in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, a resplendent saber light lit up in the void. The saber light flickered for an instant. The instant the saber light flashed, a flash of divine lightning appeared in the sky. Dark clouds covered the sky, casting darkness for 5 kilometers around. Before Ping Jun could react, this saber light struck his body. He could not dodge or defend at all. Damn it! Shao Chen roared ferociously. At the final moment before the saber light chopped him in half, he punched Ao Jiao. Ka Xie. The divine lightning turned into a thunder rock. As the saber light chopped down, Ping Jun's body was chopped in half. Electric light burst out and shattered his body. When Ao Jiao suddenly attacked, the blue-robed emperor's small perfection Ping Jun was chopped into pieces, not even leaving a corpse behind. This sudden change caught the white-haired old man and the other black-haired youth off guard. They did not even have a chance to save Shao Chen. Ao Jiao suffered a punch from Ping Jun before he died. She was significantly injured, and her body looked somewhat illusory. She was no longer as lifelike as before. However, she grasped the lunar shadow saber tightly and looked coldly at the two in front. She stood guard beside the lightning cocoon, not moving at all. Item Spirit. An item spirit with the cultivation of the blue-robed emperor. When the two saw the situation clearly and saw the lunar shadow saber in Ao Jiao's hand, their gazes turned fervent. An item spirit with the cultivation of the blue-robed emperor. If such a subdivine weapon could reach divine weapon rank in the future, it would most likely rank in the divine weapon ranking. Even if it did not rank in the divine weapon ranking, it would still be an extremely precious divine weapon. Its value far surpassed that of other divine weapons. Ha ha. Not bad. I want this saber. The black-haired youth smiled faintly and said, "The Blue Dragon King is really a human-shaped treasure trove. He has an extraordinary amount of good things on him. You want it? Are you qualified?" Just at this moment, cracks appeared in the deep purple lightning cocoon. A voice came from it. "Ka-xie. Ka-xie." The lightning cocoon shattered into pieces, and thousands of electric lights surged out, forming a huge purple pillar of light soaring into the sky. Shao Qin stood in the light, dressed in white. Winds blew in all directions, and clouds gathered. His body merged with the heavens. With a thought, he could stir up the winds and clouds. Shao Qian's gaze was like lightning as he looked at the two in front. The aura of a king looking down on the world surged out as his gaze moved. The white-haired old man and the black-haired youth revealed horrified expressions. They could not help but take 2 steps back. Ao Jiao revealed joy on her face. Shao Qin succeeded. After 12 years of life and death battles, he finally became an emperor. Attack together. When the white-haired old man and the black-haired youth saw that Shao Qin had successfully broken through to the blue-robed emperor realm, they pressured them with their auras with just one look. The two steeled their hearts. They knew that if they did not work together, they had no chance of victory. They shouted coldly and charged over. Within the pillar of lightning, Shao Qin watched the two flying over quietly. He was as unmoving as a mountain, standing like an old pine tree. He used his hands to face his enemies. The 3 blue-robed emperors merged with the heavens. Every move they made drove the power of the world. When they attacked, the world changed. The ground spun, and the sky spun. The distant sea and the nearby mountain were like illusions. They appeared around the 3 like fleeting lights and passing shadows. The blue-robed emperor's combat style was already very different from that of ordinary cultivators. Just by raising his hand, he could stir up the wind and clouds. Every move he made could draw on the power of the world. Such a scene was not a mysterious phenomenon or an illusion. It was a natural phenomenon produced when the power of the world was frequently driven. Their figures flickered, and the 3 quickly exchanged 100 moves. Shao Qin countered every move. His hands moved like lightning, moving unpredictably. He blocked all the moves of the black-haired youth and the white-haired old man. Soon, 100 moves passed. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion. The desolate island under them could no longer endure the power of the world driven by the 3's heavenly laws. Boom! The vast sea vanished into thin air. A huge black whirlpool appeared in the seawater, swallowing up the surrounding seawater. The 3 fell into the whirlpool, and the seawater spun on both sides, rumbling endlessly. However, the expressions of the 3 did not change. They ignored the whirlpool and continued to attack at lightning speed. The shock waves from the exchange and the power of the world driven by the heavenly laws prevented the black hole from filling up. Instead, the whirlpool expanded. Soon, it reached 10 kilometers in diameter. How many heavenly sage laws did he accumulate before he tried to break through to the blue-robed emperor realm? The black-haired youth and the white-haired old man felt increasingly startled. They had already been in the blue-robed emperor realm for several decades. The power of the world that the heavenly laws could drive should far surpass that of Shao Qin, who had just advanced to the blue-robed emperor realm. However, in reality, Shao Qin could drive more power of the world than the 2 of them combined, even though he was fighting 1 against 2. From the very beginning, Shao Qin had been suppressing them. As the 3 fell, the end of the whirlpool extended downwards. Bang! It extended to the bottom of the sea, spreading out in all directions. Looking down from the sky, the flat surface of the sea looked like a bottomless pit that was closing up at an extremely fast speed. Boom! The seawater suddenly merged together. The instant it merged, an overwhelming pillar of water shot out, shattering the clouds. It looked like it pierced through the sky. 3 figures leaped out of the water pillar. They were Xiao Chen's group of 3, who had just stopped fighting. In a short time, the two had already exchanged thousands of moves, fighting from the ground to the bottom of the sea, and then from the bottom of the sea to the clouds. This was the true battle between the blue-robed emperor realms. The black-haired youth and the white-haired old man appeared to be in sorry states. The instant the seawater merged, the 3 had shown some openings. However, the one who grasped these openings was Xiao Chen. Despite moving later, he arrived first, punching the 2 in the chest, severely injuring them. Even now, they were in pain. Let's go. Once he becomes stronger, we will not be able to stop him. The white-haired old man said sullenly. Then, the 2 turned and left. In the earlier 1,000 moves, they had exhausted a lot of energy. Furthermore, they were injured. If they did not leave now, they would not be able to. Xiao Chen said calmly, "You can come and go as you please. How can there be such a good thing?" Ao Jiao, saber. Ao Jiao smiled faintly and sheathed her saber. Then, she turned into a beam of light and entered the saber, chasing after Xiao Chen. Ao Jiao was the lunar shadow saber's item spirit. However, most of the time, she was not willing to remain in the saber. The true might of the lunar shadow saber, the sharpness of a subdivine weapon, was rarely revealed. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand and drew the lunar shadow saber the instant it brushed past him. An unparalleled sharpness spread out in the world. Metallic sounds reverberated in all directions. Boundless saber intent filled the air. Chapter 1048. Xiao Chen pushed off the air and his body suddenly spun around, executing instant of glory. Bright moon and autumn wind, a world of its own with each spin. As Xiao Chen spun around, mysterious phenomena appeared. The scene was grand and majestic. With that instant of saber light, it turned into eternal glory. The black-clad youth fleeing in the back showed a grave expression. He took out 3 ancient shields, trying to block this saber. However, now that the lunar shadow saber had Ao Jiao in it, its might rivaled that of a regular divine weapon. How could a few Peak King grade shields block it? This moment of instant of glory was eternal. The black-clad youth's body was chopped in half along with the shields. Xiao Chen stretched out his hand, and the spatial ring that the black-clad youth left behind flew into his grasp. Then, he looked at the white-haired old man who was already far away and did not give chase. Now that Xiao Chen had reached the threshold of the blue-robed emperor, as long as the great perfection blue-robed emperor did not appear, the small perfection blue-robed emperor would find it hard to suppress him. Xiao Chen looked around and found another desolate island. His body seemed to vanish into thin air as he landed on it. Some of the wondrous uses of heavenly laws could be infused into movement techniques by drawing on the power of the world. However, when one's speed reached its limit, they could increase it by 10%. This was something that Xiao Chen comprehended in the earlier battle. Ao Jiao came out of the saber, revealing a smile on her face. She opened her hand, revealing a blue-robed emperor's spatial ring. I heard their conversation. They are the people of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace. That is, they are the old subordinates of Neptune, the faction of the Southern Sea Dragon King, Ao Jiao said softly. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. The other party should be here for Neptune's crown. From the moment Xiao Chen came into contact with the 7 heroes of the dragon, he felt that someone was hiding in the darkness like a venomous snake, targeting him. However, Xiao Chen did not know anything about this person. He did not know the other party's true purpose. Forget it. As long as the other party's plan didn't succeed, there would always be a chance to capture the other party. Before that, he could only continue to improve his strength. Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and smiled slightly. He handed the space ring in his hand to Ao Jiao. Thanks for your help this time. If it wasn't for Ao Jiao, who had blocked a blow for him at the most crucial moment, he would have been in grave danger. Ao Jiao took the ring and curled her lips. Hee, this is the reward you gave me. You didn't even give me a chance to relax. Shao Chen was slightly taken aback. He smiled and said, what do you want? I'll help you find it. Ao Jiao was speechless. This guy was still as dumb as before. As long as he could live well, why would she want anything? He even took her joke seriously. However, she really wanted something. She really wanted Shao Chen to help her find it, but she was very hesitant. She shook her head silently in her heart. Then, she smiled and said, I'm just teasing you. These are the treasures I found from Gao Yangyu, Chen Wenjun, and the 2 Sun Palace elite disciples. I placed all the black astral coins on them in a space ring. There is not much, just 5 million black astral coins in total. 5 million black astral coins was a very large sum. After all, not everyone had the same fortuitous encounters as Shao Chen. Gao Yangyu was just a loose cultivator in the Cloud Sea domain. If he had not killed the 2 Sun Palace elite disciples, his black astral coins would have decreased even further. Shao Chen lowered his head and flipped through the treasures Ao Jiao found. There were secret manuals, medicinal pills, spirit weapons, secret treasures, and several other categories. After a quick look, Shao Chen shook his head slightly. Most of them did not catch his eye. After leaving the Cloud Sea domain, he would have to sell them off quickly. Hey, this fan is rather exquisite. Shao Chen discovered a white fan. The frame of the fan was made of many divine materials. It was hard and sturdy, and it felt very heavy in his hand. When the fan opened up, there was a painting of a night scene on the front. There was a bright moon, a small bridge, and a flowing river. There were people admiring the moon. The scene had a gentle beauty to it. There was a poem on the back. Ao Jiao said, this fan is pretty good. However, this fan is a strange weapon. Very few people use it. Most of them only show off their elegance and will not sell for a good price. Shao Chen entered deep thought. Then, he put away the fan and smiled. I will not sell this first. I have a use for it. You really like to keep people in suspense. Seeing that Shao Chen only said half of it, Ao Jiao muttered. Then, she took out a secret manual that Shao Chen ignored. She said, you should be able to use this. Back then, Gao Yangyu used this to hide his strength. Foundation Returning Art. Shao Chen read out the words on the secret manual. After flipping through a few pages, his eyes lit up. This cultivation technique was not complicated. After reading it once, Shao Chen roughly understood it. Its rank was not high, but it was very useful to Shao Chen. As long as one learned this cultivation technique, one could hide one's true strength at any time. Unless it was someone much stronger than one, no one would discover it. Back then, Gao Yangyu used this cultivation technique to hide from everyone. Shao Chen put away the foundation returning art and placed all the other treasures into a spatial ring. After he left the Cloud Sea domain, he would sell it. Hey, it's empty. It's still empty. Ao Jiao's expression changed slightly. The space in the 2 blue-robed emperor's spatial rings was chaotic. She did not see anything. When Shao Chen heard this, he could not help but be startled. He had high hopes for the wealth of the 2 blue-robed emperor's spatial rings. Why was there nothing in the spatial rings? What's going on? Shao Chen took a look for himself. Indeed, the spatial rings were empty, there was nothing in them. Ao Jiao lowered her head in thought. Clearly, the spatial rings of the blue-robed emperor would not be empty. This did not make sense. After a while, she came to a realization. I remember now. There should be some kind of secret treasure in the spatial rings. When the master dies, the imprint in the secret treasure vanishes. Then, it explodes and destroys the space in the spatial ring. There is such a secret treasure. Shao Chen was very surprised. His mood was somewhat depressed. The large amount of treasures that he expected was gone. Anyone would feel upset and depressed. Ao Jiao smiled and said, "Secret treasures that can destroy space are extremely rare. However, they definitely exist. An ancient faction like the Divine Dragon Palace should have many of them. They should be able to prepare one for all the experts above the blue-robed emperor. This is really ruthless. Even if I die, I cannot let others benefit from it." Shao Chen thought to himself, "In the future, when I defeat the blue-robed emperor, I cannot kill him on the spot. I have to knock him unconscious first." Shao Chen did not think about this for now. The trip to the treasure mountain had given him a bountiful harvest. 10 profound meaning jade strips were enough for him. So be it if the wealth of the 2 blue-robed emperors is gone. Right now, there are still many things that I have to do. After taking out the grief pendant, Shao Chen revealed a nostalgic expression. Then, he took out the cycle banner. Shao Chen prepared to refine the 4th grief thrown into the cycle banner. That's right. Ao Jiao, make a trip to Starry Cloud Island. Help me see how the Mo clan is doing. Now that the 8 city lords were dead, the Cloud Sea domain would be in chaos for a long time. Shao Chen would have a great opportunity. This would give Mo Chen a great opportunity. Her talent had always been limited. Now that she grasped the Book of Heavenly Works and the Shattered Cloud City's city lord, who had been suppressing her, was killed by Shao Chen, her future would be much smoother. Ao Jiao nodded. Then, her figure flashed as she flew towards Starry Cloud Island. Given Ao Jiao's current strength, which rivaled the blue-robed emperors, there was no one in the Cloud Sea domain that could threaten her. Shao Chen was about to leave the Cloud Sea domain. With Ao Jiao going to take a look, he could rest assured. Shao Chen took out the Dragon Phoenix Cauldron and put away the Solar True Flame first. The surface of the Golden Crow egg was already covered in cracks. In another 2 or 3 months, it would successfully hatch. At that time, it would be worth anticipating what kind of existence it would be. Shao Chen took out the Golden Crow egg and placed it aside. Then, he placed the grief pendant in. Then, Shao Chen started to use the Lunar True Flame to melt it. After his previous experience of merging thrones, Shao Chen was very familiar with the process. When the sky turned dark, he successfully merged the grief throne into the cycle banner. Massacre, death, ruin, and grief. Now, he had gathered 4 of the 7 thrones. Only 3 remained. He already had news of the despair throne. He did not know when he would find news of the pain throne and the destruction throne. Whoosh! Shao Chen held the cycle banner and gently waved it. The banner fluttered, and starlight of 4 different colors intersected. The might of the cycle banner improved. When the words, massacre, death, ruin, and grief, were used together, even the blue-robed emperor would have to retreat. Unfortunately, as long as Shao Chen could not gather all 7 thrones, the cycle banner would only be in name. In the end, the will of thunder was weaker than the will of primal chaos. Even with the familiarity of the immortal will, it would still be hard to deal with Chu Chaoyun. Shao Chen wondered what the outstanding talents that went to the astral battlefield were like now. He also wondered what was so special about the experts of the Deep Abyss demon race of the same generation. Could Chu Chaoyun be in the astral battlefield as well? Shao Chen did not think about this for now. Then, he put away the cycle banner and moved on to the next matter, to let the Solar True Flame swallow up the Purple Thunder True Flame and strengthen it further. The Solar True Flame that Mo Chen gave Shao Chen was much weaker than his own Lunar True Flame. Only by swallowing up the Purple Thunder True Flame could it contend with the Lunar True Flame and form the true Taiji Yin-Yang Flame diagram. The Purple Thunder True Flame was the strongest Yang-attributed flame. However, it was not the strongest Yang-attributed flame. Its quality was slightly weaker than the Lunar True Flame. Shao Chen opened his palm, and the Solar True Flame and Purple Thunder True Flame's origin flame appeared in his palm at the same time. Shao Chen gently pushed them up. The 2 clumps of light, one big and one small, quickly merged and swallowed each other up. The Purple Thunder True Fire's origin flame was deeply rooted in the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation. It stubbornly resisted the Solar True Flame's swallowing and even suffered a backlash. At this moment, Xiaochen needed to make a move to suppress the Purple Thunder True Fire. The process of swallowing and merging was not smooth, it was even somewhat bumpy. After spending the entire night, Xiaochen heaved a sigh of relief. The Solar True Flame had finally swallowed up the Purple Thunder True Fire. Contrary to what Xiaochen expected, the Purple Thunder True Fire's origin flame did not seem to have completely disappeared. When he circulated the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation, he could still feel a connection with the Solar True Flame. Based on this, when the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation advanced to the 8th layer, the Solar True Flame would improve further because of the Purple Thunder True Fire. Xiaochen's initial worries were no longer necessary. Xiaochen calmed himself down and dealt with the many matters on hand. On the desolate island, Xiaochen started practicing the profound saber technique, Thousand Frost Battle Snow. If Xiaochen learned this move, he would have grasped 4 profound martial techniques, Instant of Glory, Subduing Dragon Profound Slash, and the 1,000-Year Flame. Every move was an earth-shattering killing move. When executed with the strength of a quasi-emperor, its might would be even more horrifying. Chapter 1049. The last 3 moves of the Myriad Heaven Divine Fist were not profound martial techniques. However, with Xiaochen's modifications and improvements, their destructive power was no weaker than the profound martial techniques of other cultivators. 7 days passed in a flash. Xiaochen had practiced most of the 1,000 Frost Battle Snow. In the end, it was a profound martial technique left behind by someone else. He could not execute it as he pleased, nor did he comprehend it smoothly. Whoosh! A petite figure flew over from the distance. With a thought, Xiaochen made the frost on the ground and the drifting snow in the sky vanish instantly. Ao Jiao landed on the ground and patted her chest. She smiled and said, "That girl is much smarter than you." She moved the Mo clan to the Broken Cloud Sea and hid there temporarily, making it difficult for me to find her. When Xiaochen heard this, he smiled. With this, he relaxed. Mo Chen was indeed a smart person. She knew that she had to endure when the time was right. I saw you practicing the 1,000 Frost Battle Snow earlier. How was it? With your comprehension ability, it should be about time, right? Ao Jiao asked with a smile. Xiaochen nodded and said, yes. Proud snow bullying Frost, 1,000 Frost does not accept it. The name of this saber is Proud. Snow has pride, Frost has pride. When the saber is swung, it has to bring out the pride in its bones, unleashing it without restraint. Ao Jiao entered deep thought as she sized up Xiaochen. She said, I suddenly discovered that the frost in this saber is very similar to you. White snow is born noble, descending from the sky. The moment it appears, it becomes the center of attention. Its pride soars to the clouds, revealing its cold light. On the other hand, frost is born from a lowly background. It is born from deep underground filled with ravines. From birth, it will be trampled on by others. However, no matter how lowly it is, no matter how ordinary it is, the pride in its bones will not die. Frost will eventually be able to defeat the white snow filling the sky. Ao Jiao's words made Xiaochen very spirited. Then, he looked into the distance. Frost Battle Snow. Now, this frost was going to leave this cloud sea domain. He wanted to see if the snow-covered outstanding talents of the heavenly starry ocean were as incredible as Xianyuan Zhantian said. Purple Cloud Island, the largest island at the edge of the Southern Sea. After crossing this island, one would officially enter the Southern Sea. The largest city on the island was called Purple Cloud City. In an inn somewhere in the city. Did you hear? 2 of the Divine Dragon Palace's supreme elders died at the hands of the Blue Dragon King Xiaochen. Ha, how could I not know about the recent uproar in the Southern Sea region? I heard that even the old Dragon King, who was in closed-door training, was nearly alarmed. Speaking of which, this Blue Dragon King is really incredible. He used a secret treasure to instantly kill the 8 blue-robed emperors in the Cloud Sea domain. The Divine Dragon Palace thought that he had lost his trump card and wanted to take advantage of the situation. In the end, they suffered a double loss and lost face. Say, do you think that there is anyone in our Southern Sea region that can match up to Shao Qin within the same generation? Inns and taverns were always the places where cultivators gathered the most. This was also the place where news spread the fastest. The death of 2 blue-robed Emperor Supreme Elders of the Divine Dragon Palace was a major matter that could not be kept a secret. In less than a month, the news spread throughout the Southern Sea. Who could match up to the Blue Dragon King Shao Qin? When someone raised this question, the bustling inn immediately fell silent. Even the older generation blue-robed emperor died at the hands of Shao Qin. Who in the same generation could stop him? Perhaps the holy scions of the immortal Holy Lands might be able to match him. Right. Don't overestimate others. The outstanding talents of our heavenly starry ocean are not weak either. The 5 poison sects' strange poison techniques, the myriad fiend islands' ancient inheritance, and the Heavenly Province Academy's righteous chi are all at least 100,000 years old. I heard that the Lunar Palace's holy daughter is coming to our Purple Cloud City today to treat people for free. The Sun Palace's holy scions and the scions of the ancient noble clans are all coming after hearing the news. Is that true? The Lunar Palace's holy daughter rarely leaves Bright Moon City. Why is she here this time? Perhaps because the topic of matching up to Shao Qin was too heavy, the topic of the inn quickly shifted to the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. The atmosphere turned lively once more. At a table by the window on the 2nd floor, a white-clad youth with an outstanding air and delicate features held a white fan in his hand. This person looked like he was only a Grandmaster-level martial sage. However, his aura was unfathomable, like the icy water in a cold pool, very misty. When the youth heard this news, the wine cup that he was holding to his lips paused slightly. He revealed an interested expression as he put down the wine cup and muttered, "Lunar Palace's holy daughter?" The Lunar Palace. That holy land with a special status far away from the mundane world. Should I go and take a look? Since the outstanding talents of the Southern Sea will come after hearing the news, this is also an opportunity. I want to see how outstanding the cultivators of the same generation in the heavenly starry ocean are. This person was none other than Shao Qin, who had disguised himself and used the foundation returning art to hide his cultivation. He was on his way to the largest trading center of the Southern Sea, the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. That place was a maritime market, a sea market specially prepared for cultivators. It was boundlessly bustling and bustling. Be it illegal goods of unknown origins or treasures obtained through legitimate channels, one could quickly sell them there. Furthermore, there were many merchant associations, so one would not have to worry about suffering a loss. Shao Qin had heard that the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market was about to hold the biennial 10,000 Treasure Festival. There would be all sorts of auctions. No matter what level one was, one would be able to find the most suitable item. Not only could one sell the goods on hand, but one could also search for treasures that one wanted at the auction. At the same time, one could also experience the grand occasion of the 10,000 Treasure Festival. Killing 3 birds with 1 stone was very suitable. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter was very famous. Since he met her by chance, there was no harm in going and taking a look. It would not take much time. Shao Qin waved his hand and called the waiter over. The waiter walked over with a joyful smile on his face. This young master had been very extravagant in the morning. After asking around for some information, he rewarded the waiter with 100 astral coins, equivalent to several years of his salary. When the waiter saw Shao Qin wave his hand again, he rushed over in a hurry, afraid of being slow. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter is really coming to Purple Cloud Island. Do you know why? The waiter smiled and said, "Yes, she is coming. I heard that this holy daughter left Moon City half a year ago, searching everywhere for famous doctors. Everywhere she went, she would treat the injuries of others. This time, she is just passing through Purple Cloud Island and will be staying there for a few days. Her destination is the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. There are several grandmaster alchemists hired by large merchant associations there, and they are quite famous. Xiaoqin sighed softly. Finding it strange, he said, since this lunar palace's holy daughter dares to treat illnesses, her medical skills should be relatively good as well. Why is she looking for famous doctors? The waiter smiled and said, I find it strange as well. The lunar palace's holy daughter has excellent medical skills and excellent alchemy skills. She once saved several people who were on the verge of death. However, such a person is like a fairy from heaven. How can a mere manservant like me guess the thoughts of a fairy? This made sense. It would be strange if the waiter before him knew about such a difficult problem. Xiaoqin smiled and asked, do you know when she will arrive? Ha! I'm not sure. Perhaps she will arrive today. Perhaps she will arrive the day after tomorrow. Perhaps she will not stop at Purple Cloud Island at all, heading directly to the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. All these are possible. There are so many possibilities. In that case, there is no need to wait here. Xiaoqin picked up his wine cup and drained it in one go. Then, he placed down an astral coin and prepared to depart for the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. Everyone, quickly go to the west of the city. The lunar palace's holy daughter is here and has already opened her stall. Brothers, if you have any hidden injuries or internal injuries, go quickly. Otherwise, it will be a pity if you are late. Suddenly, a cultivator rushed into the inn's hall and shouted excitedly. The hall was silent for a while before it turned chaotic. The cultivators at the various tables tossed down their money and rushed to the door. Bang! In an instant, the spacious door was directly burst open, and the bustling inn was quickly emptied. Xiaoqin was flabbergasted. This was too exaggerated. Actually, if one thought about it carefully, it was not exaggerated at all. A cultivator's life would always be accompanied by pain. More or less, they would leave behind internal injuries and hidden injuries that they did not know about. Xiaoqin himself had been injured many times. However, his physical body was strong, reaching peak rank 4 sage body. He was confident that he would not leave behind any hidden injuries. The same could not be said for other cultivators. If they did not get rid of their hidden injuries, when they flared up, they would become a stubborn disease. No matter how good the spirit pills and miraculous medicines were, they would not be able to treat them. Aside from internal injuries and hidden injuries, there were also people who suffered setbacks when cultivating. Their meridians were in chaos. Now, there was a person who could treat people's injuries for free. Furthermore, his medical skills had reached great heights. It would be strange if they did not fight to the death over him. Xiaoqin pushed off the ground and leaped out of the window. Then, he somersaulted beautifully in the air and landed on the roof of the inn's top floor. Western part of the city, Xiaoqin thought to himself. Then, he unfurled the freedom wings and looked towards the western part of the city. Many scenes flashed before Xiaoqin's eyes like a movie. The big streets and small alleys, the sky, and the ground, were all filled with cultivators rushing towards the western part of the city. The scene stopped. In front of a pavilion by a lake in the western part of the city, many young girls in their prime stood in 2 rows, maintaining order. They all had graceful figures and pretty appearances. The young girls all had smiles on their faces, and their auras were ethereal. All of them had a gentle beauty like the moon, giving people a good impression of them. However, all of them were incredibly strong. When Xiaoqin saw this, he felt startled. Unexpectedly, all of these 10-odd young girls were martial sages. There were also several arrogant young men with outstanding auras standing in front of the pavilion, helping to maintain order. These should be the outstanding talents who had come to follow the lunar palace's holy daughter because of her fame. There were not many cultivators in front of the pavilion yet. However, after a while, the small path in front of the lake would be filled with cultivators who had heard the news. So close yet worlds apart. Xiaoqin took a step forward and silently crossed 5 kilometers. Then, he drifted down from the sky. Then, he landed in front of most of the cultivators and quietly lined up at the back of the line, which was not very long. The order of the place was very good. There was no clamor or noise. Every time a person stepped forward, a red rope would descend from the elegant pavilion and tie it to the cultivator's wrist. After the red rope was withdrawn, the young girls standing on both sides would receive instructions to inform the cultivator of the diagnosis. If there were ready-made medicinal pills, they would give them. If there were none, they would leave behind the medicinal pill recipe. This was very efficient. However, Xiaoqin could not help feeling disappointed. Originally, he thought that by lining up for treatment, he would be able to personally see this famous holy daughter. However, when he arrived, he realized that this holy daughter did not show herself at all. Chapter 1050. Xiaoqian's interest waned. He had the intention to leave. He was very confident in his body, he did not have any internal injuries or hidden illnesses. Since he could not see this woman, there was no point in continuing to line up. It's your turn. What are you waiting for? A melodious voice rang out. Just as Xiaoqian was thinking this, he suddenly discovered that the line in front of him was already full. The various outstanding talents in front of the pavilion all revealed displeased expressions as they looked at Xiaoqian, who was distracted. They thought that he was here to cause trouble. A few of them even had a faint baleful aura in their eyes. If Xiaoqian was really here to cause trouble, they would not mind teaching him a lesson. Xiaoqian smiled bitterly in his heart. He could only go up and go through the motions. Otherwise, there would be some small trouble. Xiaoqian stepped forward and stretched out his wrist. A red string carrying a medicinal fragrance flew over from the pavilion. Whoosh! It tied itself to his wrist and tied a knot. Xiaoqian looked at the red string. However, a screen blocked his view. Even his spiritual sense could only see a mist, he could not see the holy daughter's appearance behind the mist. Xiaoqian felt a cool and refreshing energy flow through his body. Then, the red string bounced back. The diagnosis was complete. However, unexpectedly, after a long time, no young girl came out from either side. No one came out to tell Xiaoqian the results of the diagnosis. There was also no medicinal pill or pill recipe for him. The others whispered to each other, not knowing what was going on. However, Xiaoqian was very clear. He did not have any hidden injuries or internal injuries. Why would they give him the medicinal pill or pill recipe? Sorry for the interruption. It looks like my body is fine. There are no hidden injuries or hidden injuries. After giving the pavilion a deep look, Xiaoqian performed a cupped fist salute and prepared to take his leave. He had only come here to join in on the excitement. There was nothing else to see, so naturally, there was no need to stay. Ha! You are really interesting. The Holy Daughter said that your illness is beyond cure. Even a divine doctor cannot save you. We were just hesitating on whether to tell you or not. A young girl laughed coquettishly, saying something that Xiaoqian would never have thought of. Beyond cure. How could that be? Xiaoqian's physical body had been tempered several times, going through many trials and suffering 1,000 kinds of pain. After consuming 100 drops of dragon marrow, he had attained a peak rank 4 sage body. How could he be so sick that even a divine doctor couldn't save him? Young master, you still have 10 years to live. If you have any wishes, you should do them as soon as possible, said the pretty attendant softly. She also had a look of pity on her face. Xiaoqian found it a little funny. The more he said, the more ridiculous he became. He even said that he only had 10 more years to live. Perhaps the Lunar Palace's holy daughter was only a so-so. Just look at the so-called outstanding talents in front of the pavilion. They only had appearances and were not worth mentioning. Perhaps there were no experts in the entire heavenly starry ocean. At the very least, there were no eye-catching people in the same generation. How unfortunate. At such a young age, this white-robed person is already a Grand Master-level martial sage. Clearly, he is an outstanding talent of a noble clan. He can be considered a hero. Unexpectedly, he only has 10 more years to live. A hero? Perhaps he is overexerting himself and does not know the principle of progressing step by step. That's why he fell sick. Furthermore, he does not know that and came to the lunar palace's holy daughter to join in the fun. That's true. Based on his appearance, he does not look like he is here to treat his injuries. He probably thinks that his cultivation is pretty good and that he can gain the holy daughter's favor. Who knew, the lunar palace's holy daughter would see through his hidden illness with one glance. Serves him right. The cultivators waiting in line all had expressions of schadenfreude in their tones. When they saw a cultivator who was far more outstanding than them only have 10 more years to live, they would definitely feel some joy. I wonder where this white-robed person came from. Based on his scholarly appearance, he might be from a Confucian noble clan near the Heavenly Province Academy. I have never heard of such a person in the Heavenly Province Academy. Even some of the more famous Confucian noble clans do not have such a person. He probably came from a small clan. That should be the case. He does not seem to have any righteous chi on him. His clan probably used him as a sacrificial pawn. He still does not realize it, thinking that he can become a dragon in one leap. There were all sorts of discussions. It seemed like they all agreed with the lunar palace's holy daughter. The holy daughter said that Xiaoqin only had 10 more years to live, so he really would not live past that. The 4 youths in front of the pavilion all rejoiced in Xiaoqian's misfortune. With one glance, they could tell that Xiaoqin was not really here to seek treatment. They felt that Xiaoqian's true purpose was the same as theirs, just to get close to the lunar palace's holy daughter. Xiaoqin gently closed the folding fan in his hand and smiled faintly. Then, he prepared to turn and leave. Young master, please wait. The holy daughter still has something to say. If you are willing to cripple your cultivation and become an ordinary person, I can lend you the lunar palace's longevity art. I can lend young master the lunar palace's longevity art. I guarantee that young master will live to 100. Xiaoqin originally had a smile on his face. Now, his expression sank completely. This was really never-ending. These people really could say anything. Now, they actually wanted him to cripple his cultivation. There should be a limit to the nonsense they spouted, alright? Xiaoqin stopped walking and turned around with the white folding fan in his hand. Young master, have you made up your mind? If you are really willing to cripple your cultivation, I can let young master read 3 chapters of the lunar palace's longevity art. When the delicate girl who spoke saw Xiaoqin turn around, she thought that he had changed his mind. She repeated what she said earlier. Her tone was gentle, but her posture contained a kind of aloof arrogance. It was as if letting Xiaoqin read the first 3 chapters of the longevity art was already a great kindness and charity. Xiaoqin smiled and said, "Actually, I am also somewhat skilled in medicine. When the holy daughter took my pulse, she concluded that I have 10 more years to live. It is impolite not to reciprocate. I will also take the holy daughter's pulse and see if she is in a delirious state." You are so young, yet you are already speaking nonsense. The moment Xiaoqin said that, everyone's expressions changed drastically. The lunar palace's holy daughter held an esteemed position and a high prestige. Unexpectedly, Xiaoqin dared to question the lunar palace's holy daughter, speaking rudely. She gave you kindness and saved your life. Not only did you not feel grateful, but you even slandered the holy daughter. How bold! Where did this wild brat come from? Why don't you look at where you are? How dare you behave atrociously here? A dark-skinned youth in blue among the 4 outstanding talents in front of the pavilion drew his sword in anger. Then, he charged at Xiaoqin while emitting killing chi. The people on the left and right reacted too slowly. They could not help but curse this brat for being too shrewd. This was an opportunity to show off, yet this fellow snatched it away. Without hesitation, the 3 of them attacked together, charging at Xiaoqin. Ha! The 4 strongest youths of our Purple Cloud Island are attacking together. This brat is dead for sure. It is good that he is dead. He even dares to speak rudely to the holy daughter. Serves him right. In any case, he will not live for more than 10 years. It is all the same if he dies earlier or later. A small clan is indeed a small clan. They have not seen much of the world and think that Grandmaster-level martial sages are incredible. They do not know that Grandmaster-level martial sages are divided into the strong and the weak. Our Southern Sea does not need too many young Grandmaster-level martial sages like him. The girl who tried to console Xiaochen frowned slightly when she saw the 4 outstanding talents of Purple Cloud Island surging with killing chi. However, she did not say anything in the end. Xiaochen's words were simply too overboard. It turned out that they were cultivators of Purple Cloud Island. No wonder they were Grandmaster-level martial sages. No wonder they were not even comparable to the elite disciples of the Sun Palace in Xiaochen's opinion. Grandmaster-level martial sages were indeed divided into the strong and the weak. However, these 4 people before Xiaochen clearly belonged to the weakest category. Wherever they went, any Grandmaster-level martial sage would beat them into kneeling and begging for mercy. The phrase, not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth, referred to these 4 people. Xiaochen opened his folding fan. He did not use the strength of the blue-robed emperor, only that of a Grandmaster-level martial sage. The instant he opened his folding fan, a layer of frost spread out from under Xiaochen's feet. Crystalline white snowflakes drifted down from the sky. Proud of the snow, bullying the frost, the Thousand Frost will not submit. Xiaochen waved his folding fan, and thousands of strands of cold saber chi soared up from the ground. These strands of saber chi carried a stubborn pride as they swept out. The 4 outstanding talents of Purple Cloud Island bore the brunt of the attack. The saber chi covered their bodies in wounds, and their auras scattered. They fell to the ground in sorry states. When their wounds came into contact with them, they immediately cried out miserably in pain. The young girls on both sides received a significant blow as well, getting knocked back and dealing with the strands of saber chi in a fluster. If Xiaochen had not suppressed his strength, this Thousand Frost battle snow would have wiped out everyone before him. However, Xiaochen did not have a huge grudge against Xiaochen. It was just that he was angered by the other party's nonsense and the other party's expression of gratitude. Xiaochen only wanted to vent his anger. He had not thought of killing anyone. Taking advantage of the flustered crowd, Xiaochen closed his folding fan and switched it to his left hand. Then, he casually pulled out a strand of hair with his right hand. Xiaochen flicked his finger, and a boundless saber chi appeared. The strand of hair gave off a crystalline light as it extended towards the screen in the pavilion with an unparalleled aura. Behind the screen was an elegant, fairy-like woman who was as ethereal as the moon. She wore snow-white clothes as she sat behind an elegant, red wooden table. The red string in her hand shot out unhurriedly, piercing through the screen. In a thousandth of a second, it clashed with Xiaochen's strand of hair. Bang! The two clashed. To the white-clad woman's surprise, the strand of hair pierced through her red string, making it look like a piece of bamboo, exploding into pieces. A strong saber intent spread out in all directions. The flower vases, trees, and all the other exquisite decorations in the pavilion instantly shattered into dust. However, it was clear that Xiaochen had held back. Otherwise, it would not just be these flower vases that shattered but the entire pavilion. The shock on the white-clad woman's face had just passed when she discovered that the strand of hair had already wrapped around her wrist, gently knotting it. A middle-aged woman with an extremely strong aura hid in the shadows behind the white-clad woman. When she saw this, she wanted to make a move to break the strand of hair. After the white-clad woman recovered from her shock, she smiled faintly and waved her hand to stop the other party. After a while, a cold chi flowed through the strand of hair and traveled through the various acupoints of the white-clad woman's body, paying special attention to several acupoints in the brain. The woman felt startled in her heart. Based on the location of the cold chi traveling through the acupoints, it was clearly an extremely profound pulse-reading technique. Furthermore, it was very different from current medical techniques. Chapter 1051. Outside the pavilion, Xiaochen tapped his hair with 4 fingers in a certain rhythm. Time slowly passed. Xiaochen's expression turned increasingly grave, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. The Lunar Palace disciples in front had more or less dealt with the frost saber chi binding them. Shao Qin showed a sullen expression. He could not even be bothered with the strand of hair in his hand. He tossed it aside and left, not willing to stay a moment longer, clearly preoccupied. Damn! This fellow really took the pulse of the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. He profaned the holy daughter. We can't let him escape. No one had expected Shao Qin to take the pulse of the fairy-like person in their hearts. All of them immediately flew into a rage, surrounding Shao Qin as he turned to leave. The earlier anger vanished without a trace. Shao Qin just wanted to leave. He threw out his folding fan and danced around him. The bright moon in the fan, the small bridge, and the flowing water seemed to appear in the real world. The gentle moon, the clear water, and the fluttering folding fan. Shao Qin stood on a small bridge, gradually moving further away. No one could stop him for even a moment. Inside the pavilion, a strand of black hair wound around the index finger of the white-clad woman. She stood up and went to the window. As she watched Shao Qin walk away on the moon and the bridge, her pretty eyes revealed a contemplative look. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and his white robes fluttered. Shao Qin stepped on the moonlight and rode the bridge back. The road in front of the lake was in chaos. The people who blocked Shao Qin all suffered significant injuries. Shao Qin, who was in a rush to leave with a heavy heart, did not control his strength well, resulting in several severe injuries. The female Lunar Palace disciples moved about, checking on the injuries and treating them. Chaos reigned everywhere. The white-clad woman in front of the pavilion frowned slightly. The beautiful middle-aged woman with an outstanding aura behind her stepped forward and whispered, "Bing Yun, this person is an expert. He might have hidden his cultivation." Yu Bingyun felt it was strange. She asked, in Aunt Bai's eyes, he is an expert as well. The beautiful, noble, and graceful Auntie Bai smiled and said, it's just a feeling. This person is definitely someone with a story. Unfortunately, 10 years are about to pass, and the heavens are jealous of him. Yu Bingyun lowered her head and looked at the strand of fine black hair wrapped around her index finger. She said softly, it is possible that he is the person we are looking for. Really? The woman Yu Bingyun addressed as Aunt Bai paled somewhat. Whether it is true or not, we still have to ask him in person. Even if he did not leave his name, I have never heard of this person in the heavenly starry ocean. Judging from his attire, I wonder if the Heavenly Province Academy's young master Qingshu knows him. Yu Bingyun looked at the strand of hair between her fingers, feeling that it was a pity. Suddenly, she looked up from the window and saw a figure rushing over in the distance at lightning speed. He was like a soaring true dragon, stepping on the auspicious clouds and withdrawing the strong winds. His roar was like the roar of a true dragon, reverberating in all directions. The many injured cultivators below immediately recognized him. They could not help but reveal astonished expressions. It's the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's young palace master, Hai Tian. Indeed, when the Lunar Palace's holy daughter arrived at Purple Cloud Island, the outstanding talents of the Southern Sea will definitely come after hearing the news. The Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace was a huge faction of the Southern Sea. When Neptune was still around, it was even stronger than the immortal Holy Land's Zodiac Hall. Naturally, the purpose of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's young palace master was self-evident. He was here for the Lunar Palace's holy daughter, Yu Bingyun. Suddenly, a flickering lightning-attributed flame lit up in the western sky. A lightning-attributed flame tore through the sky and headed for the pavilion as well. The young master of an ancient noble clan, the scion of the Gongsun clan, Gongsun Yen. A strong wind blew in the northern sky. A berserk aura spread out together with the strong wind. Everyone could feel a prideful aura that looked down on the world. It's another ancient noble clan, the scion of the Shengguan clan, Shengguan Yun. Soundlessly, a person flew over from the east. He didn't seem to be making any big movements, but as he moved, the sky behind him moved forward bit by bit, giving off an oppressive feeling, as if the might of the heavens were descending. The scion of the Xia clan is here as well. The many cultivators on the ground erupted with excitement. In such a short time, nearly all the factions of the Southern Sea that could rival the immortal Holy Lands had arrived. This was a true outstanding talent. The 4 people from Purple Cloud Island were far inferior compared to him. The reputation of the Lunar Palace's holy daughter filled the sky with boundless charm. Just as everyone thought that this was the end, something happened in the central sky. A dazzling golden sun slowly descended, overshadowing the radiance of the blazing sun. Beside him, there was a full moon. The sun and the moon descended together, and the sun and moon shone together, illuminating the surroundings. With such an obvious mysterious phenomenon, no one in the Southern Sea would not know. This was the holy sun of the Southern Sea's immortal holy land, the Zodiac Hall's holy daughter, Fu Hongyao. One was the top true inheritor of the Sun Palace, and the other was the top true inheritor of the Moon Palace. They were the most outstanding talents of the same generation in the Southern Sea. This was especially so for the holy son Chu Yang. He had been in closed-door cultivation for the past few years. His strength was unfathomable. Rumor had it that the location of his closed-door cultivation was the blazing sun. The palace master of the Zodiac Hall, the Prime Emperor Wu, Jin Shuani, personally guarded him. The moment the sun and moon appeared, the auras of the others immediately paled in comparison to the two, becoming slightly inferior. As the group approached the pavilion in front of the lake, they seemed to come to a tacit understanding and scattered their auras, withdrawing their sharpness. This was a show of respect for the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. They did not act presumptuously. They landed firmly and reported their identities, waiting quietly. The first to land was the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's Hai Tian. When he saw Gong Sun Yen, he smiled faintly and said, "It looks like Brother Gongsuan's Thunderflame War body made a breakthrough again. If you have time, let's exchange pointers." Gong Sun Yen smiled calmly and said, "It's so-so. However, if Brother Hai Tian wants to exchange pointers, I can accompany you at any time." The two's tone was calm. However, as they spoke, they clashed with each other, giving off a faint smell of gunpowder. "Ha! Brother Hai Tian, I heard that the Blue Dragon King recently killed 2 of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's blue-robed emperors. Is that true?" A strong wind blew, and the scion of the ancient Shengguan clan, Shengguan Yun, landed quietly. He smiled at Hai Tian. The scion of the Xia clan, Xia Han Feng, who wanted to arrive with heaven's might, had just landed. When he heard this, he also looked at Hai Tian curiously. The news of the Blue Dragon King Shao Qin killing 2 of the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's blue-robed emperors had spread like wildfire. These outstanding talents were all curious as to whether this was true or not. Hai Tian felt stifled, and anger appeared on his face. Just as he did not know how to answer, he saw the holy sons and holy daughters of Zodiac Hall land together. Hai Tian raised his eyebrows, and his lips curled up. He said, "Shengguan Yun, I think you should go and ask Chu Yang." The Blue Dragon King nearly disfigured Fu Hongyao with one punch during his king conferral ceremony. Is there such a thing? Shengguan Yun glared at Hai Tian. Only a fool would mention this matter to Chu Yang. When Chu Yang and Fu Hongyao landed in front of the pavilion, they acted like they had not heard what Shengguan Yun said and headed straight for the doors. "Friends, the holy daughter is startled today, and the pavilion is in a mess. Aside from Miss Red Yao, it is not convenient for the other young masters to meet." The Lunar Palace's female disciples standing guard at the doors said apologetically to the group. Fu Hongyao was acquainted with the Lunar Palace's holy daughter in the first place. Naturally, Yu Bingyun would not reject Fu Hongyao. Under the gazes of the others, Fu Hongyao entered the pavilion. The holy daughter is startled. Could it be that someone dares to cause trouble in the pavilion of the Lunar Palace's holy daughter? When the group saw the chaotic scene of the Lunar Palace's disciples treating the injured in the crowd, their expressions sank. That might be the case. After asking around, the expressions of Hai Tian and the others changed drastically. How audacious! Where did this fellow come from? To think that he does not know the immensity of the heavens and earth, even daring to take the holy daughter's pulse. Hai Tian said angrily. The expressions of Shengguan Yun and the others were unsightly as well. Yu Bingyun being profaned in their southern sea was a slap to the faces of all the outstanding talents of the southern sea. In the future, during the Four Seas Hero Gathering, the many outstanding talents of the other sea domains would definitely mock them in Bright Moon City because of this. We have to find this person. Otherwise, we will lose a lot of face, Shengguan Yun, who was at odds with Hai Tian, said, something that he rarely did. Naturally, the others did not mind. This was both a good and a bad thing. In this day and age, no one could truly profane the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. How could they miss out on such an opportunity to show off before the holy daughter? The few of them acted in concert with their words. However, they were all thinking about how to obtain the greatest benefits for themselves in this matter. Only Chu Yang of the Zodiac Hall remained silent. He simply could not think of anyone in the heavenly starry ocean who dared to profane Yu Bingyun. Could it be someone from the Black Sea? That's not right. There is no such person in the Black Sea. If there were, I would definitely know who it was. Perhaps this matter is not as simple as it appears on the surface. Thousands of meters away, at the top floor of an inn, 3 or 4 dissolute cultivators with evil auras sat at a table by the window. They all had smiles on their faces as they looked at the pavilion from afar. In the entire history of the Lunar Palace, even back to the time of Neptune, only one holy daughter has ever fallen in love with a mortal. These people are really delusional. Humph! What outstanding talent! They look bright and awe-inspiring. But in front of a woman, you've become so timid and polite. You don't deserve to be called a prodigy at all. That brother in white is still the best. He suits my taste. Since ancient times, he is the only one who dared to forcefully take the pulse of the holy daughter. Ha! Well said. I wonder if second brother can catch up to this person. I really want to make friends with him. He definitely can. Second brother's movement technique is excellent. The same thing had a different result in the eyes of different people. At this moment, Xiaoqin clearly did not know what kind of ripples his impromptu actions had caused. However, even if he knew, he would not care too much about it, given how preoccupied he was. Xiaoqin flew all the way out of Purple Cloud Island. After traveling for an unknown distance, he stopped before a lone island. The folding fan fluttered as Xiaoqin stretched out his hand and grasped it. The bright moon, the bridge, and the flowing water were no longer there. His figure drifted over and landed on the tallest peak of the island. Standing at the summit, Xiaoqin looked at the boundless sea. He frowned heavily, thinking about something. Xiaoqin, what's wrong? Ao Jiao had long noticed that something was wrong with Xiaoqian's expression, so she could not help asking. Xiaoqin gently fanned himself and said that Lunar Palace's holy daughter did not speak nonsense. At the very least, there was no need for her to do so. The longevity art is indeed a holy manual for maintaining one's health. It is worthy of such a grand display. Chapter 1052. That is to say, you misunderstood her. Ao Jiao smiled. Then, she suddenly reacted and said, that's impossible. How can you only have 10 years of lifespan? After you break through to the blue-robed emperor, your lifespan will increase to 1,000 years. Xiaoqin thought for a while before replying, lifespan is divided into 2 types. One is natural lifespan, and the other is physiological lifespan. Natural lifespan is easy to understand. Ordinary people's natural lifespan is 70 or 80 years. As cultivators break through their cultivation realms, their natural lifespan will increase. Physiological lifespan is the lifespan of the body. Normally speaking, the two are the same. However, sometimes, there are accidents that cause the physiological lifespan to exceed the natural lifespan by too much. She is 20 years old, but her body is that of a 70 or 80-year-old. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter should be referring to my physiological lifespan. Ao Jiao felt that this was incredible. She asked doubtfully, what exactly did you see when you took the holy daughter's pulse for you to change so much? When Xiaochen recalled that scene, he was still deeply shocked. After a long time, he said, her physiological lifespan is like that of a baby. If there are no accidents, she will remain like that for the next 10 years. How can that be? She looks like she is at least 20 years old. Xiaochen did not believe it either. However, that aura could not be wrong. The alchemy section of the Compendium of Cultivation had some knowledge of medicine. The pulse-taking technique recorded there could not be wrong. It was precisely because of this that Xiaochen started to take the Lunar Palace's holy daughter's words seriously, no longer treating them as nonsense. After Xiaochen calmed down and thought about it, he realized that the other party did not know him, so there was no need for her to speak nonsense. It would not do her any good. After that, he used this pulse-taking technique to check his physiological lifespan. Although it looked strong, the physiological lifespan of a peak rank 4 sage body did indeed have less than 10 years left. Xiaochen had never thought about this problem before. The alchemy section of the Compendium of Cultivation only had a brief introduction to this, so he had not paid much attention to it. Ao Jiao came to a realization and said, I think I know what the problem is. There's a problem with your physical body cultivation. You endured all kinds of pain and tempered your body thousands of times. When your physical body improved by leaps and bounds, you didn't pay attention to the way to nourish your body. Xiaochen's physical body cultivation was indeed somewhat horrifying. At such a young age, he had already attained a peak rank 4 sage body. Xiaochen had started cultivating his physical body in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion from the dragon and tiger body sculpting art. If he calculated the time, it had been less than 10 years. However, in the past 10 years, he had not done anything to nourish his body. Instead, he had used heavenly materials and earthly treasures to nourish his body. This was also because he had never met a true master on his path of cultivation. Ao Jiao had a lot of experience, but the Thunder King did not cultivate his corporeal body and knew very little about this aspect, so he could not help Xiaochen. Back when Xiaochen first advanced to Martial Monarch, he had to refine his quintessence twice for each minor realm, enduring boundless pain. That path established the purity of Xiaochen's quintessence. Even after he converted it to heavenly sage laws, his quintessence was still much denser than that of cultivators of the same generation. However, the damage to his body would be immense. At that time, Xiaochen felt that he would be fine once he endured it. Going further, when Xiaochen was in the lower realm, he had rashly used the strength character formula. 33-fold combat prowess was heaven-defying. As an inferior grade martial monarch, he had forced back a martial sage. Perhaps at that time, the seeds of danger had already been planted. Now, looking at the myriad heaven divine fist, deities descending, Xiaochen had been using the 10-fold combat prowess wantonly. He had probably unknowingly drained his physiological lifespan. 10-fold combat prowess, 33-fold combat prowess, such heaven-defying existences should have a price. Suddenly, Xiaochen recalled that in his previous life, there had also been a heaven-defying martial arts expert on Earth. At a young age, he had been unrivaled, famous throughout the world. However, he had died young and mysteriously. There was a rumor that he had cultivated excessively, undergoing too much cruel training. The two remained silent. After a while, Xiaochen recovered his emotions. He smiled and said, "It's fine. It is not too late to understand now. At the very least, I know of 2 ways to salvage the situation." "Which 2? "Naturally, the first is the Lunar Palace's longevity art. Unfortunately, that is the Lunar Palace's sacred canon. Outsiders can only read 3 chapters at most, it is impossible to read the entire book. Hence, there was no need to even think about the first method. How could the Lunar Palace lend its inherited sacred canon to outsiders? Snatching it was even more impossible. The Lunar Palace had many experts. It would be better to just marry a holy daughter. As for the second method, there is no need to beg others. It is my own blue dragon body nourishing art. Now that I think about it, I somewhat understand why this body tempering cultivation technique is called the body nourishing art and not the body tempering art. The foundation of the body-tempering art is clearly to nourish the body. When Ao Jiao heard this, she smiled and said, "Really? So, you already thought of this solution long ago? You startled me." Xiaoqin smiled helplessly in his heart. Although that was what he said, he had exhausted too much of his physiological lifespan. It had already reached a point where it could not be reversed. Even if the blue dragon body nourishing art was useful, it might be too late to realize it now. Xiaoqin was not sure. However, he did not want Ao Jiao to worry too much, so he purposely said this. The most reliable solution was still the Lunar Palace's longevity art. Just at this moment, the sound of something tearing came from behind. Xiaoqin frowned slightly and turned around to look. Xiaoqin saw a stout, dark-skinned man giving off a ruffian aura quickly flying towards him. Xiaoqin did not see any killing chi from this person or any killing intent in his eyes. Instead, he had a strange expression. How should Xiaoqin put it? This expression was one of worship. Xiaoqin felt suspicious. However, he kept his guard up and let the stout man fly in front of him. "Ha! Brother, your speed is extraordinarily fast. If we had not paused on this island for a while, I would have lost you." The dark-skinned man stopped and laughed heartily. Xiaoqin smiled to himself. This person is really straightforward. I wonder why he is following me all the way here. Brother, I think very highly of you. Come with me to kidnap the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. The stout man said seriously just as Xiaoqin thought this. Xiaoqin could not help but want to laugh. This person could no longer be described as straightforward. If not for this stout man being stronger than that Sun Palace elite disciple, Xiaoqin would have thought that he had run into a madman. The Lunar Palace's holy daughter could not be casually kidnapped. Not to mention the holy daughter, Xiaoqin also sensed a great perfection blue-robed emperor expert by her side. If Xiaoqin managed to kidnap her, given the Lunar Palace's reputation, there would be no place for him in the entire heavenly starry ocean. Furthermore, the Lunar Palace disciples all had secret techniques to protect themselves. There would be no benefit in kidnapping such a person. After thinking for a while, Xiaoqin still smiled and said, "Brother, thank you for thinking so highly of me. However, I do not have such ambitions. Furthermore, I still have important matters to attend to. You will have to find someone else for such a big matter." The dark-skinned man revealed an expression of extreme regret. He said, "How unfortunate. Many people of the righteous and righteous factions want to do something but cannot. Brother, you managed to do it easily. It is too unfortunate that you do not join us." The stout man did not give up. He continued to try to persuade Xiaoqin to do great things with him. Finally, when he saw Xiaoqin's firm attitude, he smiled helplessly and said, "Brother has things to do, so I will not insist. However, with one look, I can tell that brother is a kindred spirit. Tell me your name, and if you have time in the future, come to the Black Sea. I, Ba Tu, will definitely take good care of you." The Black Sea. Xiaoqin felt excited. That was the place with the richest resources in the entire oceanic world. It was precisely because of the Black Sea that the many major factions of the heavenly starry ocean did not care about the resources of the starry heavens. To them, the resources of the Black Sea were an inexhaustible treasure trove. There was no need for them to go to the starry heavens. However, the Black Sea was also a place for great bandits and peak loose cultivators. This Ba Tu before Xiaoqin did not look like a loose cultivator. He did not have the baleful aura of a loose cultivator. He should be the descendant of a famous great bandit. Xiaoqin was willing to befriend such a person. He smiled and said, "I am Mo Yun. We will meet again in the future." For a very long time, Mo Yun would be Xiaoqin's alias when he traveled the heavenly starry ocean. Ba Tu watched as Xiaoqin flew in the direction of the 10,000 treasure sea market. Only when Xiaoqin's figure disappeared did he turn his head back. He still had an expression of pity on his face. A sea market, a market on the sea, referred to a cultivator's market that existed only in the oceanic world. There were many sea markets of various sizes in the Southern Sea. However, the most famous one had to be the 10,000 treasure sea market. Shaochen followed the sea map and walked on the water. His white robes and folding fan made him look unremarkable in the vast sea. As Shaochen got closer to the 10,000 treasure sea market, the number of cultivators he met increased. These people were in groups of 2 or 3, discussing the upcoming 10,000 treasure festival. Not only were there auctions for the various levels, but there were also professional auctions, such as secret treasure auctions, medicinal pill auctions, spirit weapon auctions, and so on. Aside from these, there were also all sorts of appraisal sessions. If one had good judgment and a good character, one might be able to obtain some pleasant surprises. The biennial 10,000 Treasure Festival was considered a grand event in the Southern Sea. Many cultivators would rush over. Shaochen did not travel very fast. After half a month, he finally saw the landmark of the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. A gigantic statue stood on the surface of the vast sea. Its upper body was above the water, and it was tens of thousands of zhang tall. The statue was dressed like an immortal cultivator from the immortal epoch. It wore Buddhist robes, and 4 carefree scarves floated above its head. The statue's left hand was stretched out in the air, and 2 fingers of its right hand formed a sword. The statue stared into the distance, piercing through space and the barrier of the sky as it looked at the distant starry heavens. The statue seemed to be forming some kind of hand seal, giving the impression that a living person had suddenly petrified after being magnified countless times. The statue froze in the river of time, trapped for a lifetime. This kind of scene could only be seen from a very far distance. However, when one got closer, one would not be able to see it clearly because it was too vast and tall. The entire 10,000 Treasure Sea Market was made up of thousands of islands of various sizes around the statue. The core island was the palm of the statue. That was a city, and the peak auctions were held there. Merchant ships stood in great numbers, and the flags of thousands of merchant associations fluttered in the wind. It was bustling, noisy, and vast. This was the 10,000 Treasure Sea Market. Chapter 1053. Shaochen had a clear goal. He flew towards 10,000 Treasure City. The instant he flew into the air, he felt a formless pressure. This pressure came from the statue itself. Without the strength of a martial sage, one would not even be qualified to step into this 10,000 Treasure City. The higher Shaochen flew, the greater the pressure. If he wanted to reach the top of the statue, he would have to be at least as strong as the blue-robed emperor. Naturally, just flying to the top of the 10,000 Treasure City did not pose any pressure to Shaochen. The mysterious pressure was no different from air to him. In just an instant, Shaochen arrived above the palm. When he looked down, he could see the entire bustling and exquisite 10,000 Treasure City. There was a palace on each of the 5 fingers of the statue. The 5 city lords of 10,000 Treasure City resided in these palaces. The palace on the thumb was the most magnificent and vast. That was the residence of the top city lord, the treasure master. The treasure master's identity was mysterious and venerated. He traveled everywhere and rarely showed himself. Right now, his grandson was in charge of all major and minor matters. The one on the pinky finger was the 5th city lord, the one on the ring finger was the 4th city lord, the one on the index finger was the 3rd city lord, and the one on the middle finger was the 2nd city lord. He broke through the might of 10,000 Treasure City in one breath. At such a young age, he already has an overwhelming wealth qi. This is a very important guest. Ziying, go and entertain him personally. Do not delay him. Do your best to pull all his business into the merchant association we control. An old man in the palace on the pinky finger suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze penetrated 50 kilometers and clearly saw the white-clad Shaochen. This person seems to be only a Grand Master-level martial sage. Is there a need to send your daughter out personally? The girl named Ziying felt somewhat suspicious. Several great Grand Master-level martial sages and even the blue-robed emperor had appeared, but her father had not even opened his eyes. Ha! Ha! Hurry up and go. If you wait any longer, when the other city lords react, you won't have this chance anymore. The old man smiled gently. His tone was gentle, but it contained a strong might. This was not an order, but it was irresistible. Ziying rejoiced in her heart. When her father said this, it would definitely be right. Aside from the mysterious treasure master, the other 4 city lords were all merchant associations from outside. An evaluation would be held every 10 years, and if the profits that the Chamber of Commerce brought to the treasure city were too low, they would lose the right to be the city lord. This was the rule set by the treasure master. No matter how strong the merchant association's backing was, it still had to obediently follow the rules when it came to the 10,000 treasure sea market. The profits of the 9 Cauldron Pavilion's branch in Treasure City had been declining for the past few years. It had fallen once every 10 years, and it had already fallen from the 2nd-ranked city lord to the 5th-ranked. If it continued to drop like this, she would probably lose her right to be the 5th city lord. A large order could reduce the pressure on Ziying. Without any warning, just as Xiao Chen was about to land, a 7-colored bridge extended from the distance to Xiao Chen's feet. Rainbow light flickered. A gorgeous rainbow bridge stretched across the sky. It was beautiful to the extreme. 5-colored heavenly flowers floated down from the sky. Many pairs of eyes in the treasure city below immediately looked up into the sky. 5-colored heavenly flowers and a 7-colored rainbow bridge. It was unknown which esteemed guest had been intercepted by one of the 5 city lords and received with the highest form of etiquette. The cultivators in the city were all martial sages at the very least. When they infused their mental energy into their eyes, they could clearly see Xiao Chen, who was very far away. This person wore white robes and held a white fan. He looked delicate and pretty, no more than 30 years old. He was a Grand Master-level martial sage. When one looked carefully at this person's face, no one had heard of him before. Several people immediately felt suspicious. How could an unknown outstanding talent receive such a grand reception from the 9 Cauldron Pavilion? The 9 Cauldron Pavilion probably misjudged him again. His business has been declining for the past few years. After this 10,000 treasure festival, he will probably lose his position as the city lord. Such mockery rang out continuously in the treasure city. The 9 Cauldron Pavilion had definitely misjudged him by receiving a Grand Master-level martial sage with such a grand reception. They would become a laughing stock and become the joke of this 10,000 treasure festival. When Xiao Chen heard Ao Jiao's explanation as he faced the 7-colored bridge, he roughly understood what was going on. This was really strange. Despite being a Grand Master-level martial sage and not being famous, he could cause such a huge commotion. This was fine as well. With someone to receive him, he could save himself some trouble. Xiao Chen was somewhat confident in the ability of the Foundation returning art to hide his cultivation. As long as he ran into some special secret treasures, it would be hard for him to be discovered. Even if he was discovered, it would not matter. With the Peak Thunder Dragon steps and the Freedom Wings, he was confident of leaving easily even if Emperor Wu came personally. A pretty girl arrived on the bridge. This was the manager of the 9 Cauldron Pavilion in the Treasure City, Ziying. This lady is Ziying, the manager of 10,000 Cities 9 Cauldron Pavilion. Might I ask for young master's name? The girl named Ziying gave off the impression of a capable person with one glance. Her aura was very similar to Ying Qiong's. As Ziying spoke, her actions were very graceful and charming. While she was respectful, she did not give off an overly flattering feeling. Perhaps it was because Ziying's aura was very similar to Ying Qiong's, but Xiao Chen had a very good first impression of this girl. He performed a cupped fist salute as he held the folding fan in his hand and said, "I do not dare to claim my distinguished name. I am Mo Yun. You can just address me casually." The two stood on the 7-colored bridge like it was flat ground. Then, the 7-colored bridge slowly shrank. It carried the two further away, drifting down towards the palace on the pinky finger. After chatting for a while, Ziying felt that Mo Yun's way of speaking was extraordinary. Her father definitely did not misjudge him. It looks like young Master Mo came because of the 10,000 Treasure Festival. I wonder if you have any special requests this time. The Nine Cauldron Pavilion is one of the top 5 merchant associations in 10,000 Treasure City. As for the backer of the Nine Cauldron Pavilion, it is considered a peak merchant association in the entire Heavenly Starry Ocean. After chatting for a while, Ziying moved to the main topic. After a pause, she continued, if young master has any requests, the Nine Cauldron Pavilion will definitely be able to fulfill them. Xiaoqin smiled faintly and opened his folding fan. I do indeed have some special requests. I need secret treasures containing dragon souls, in large quantities. Ziying felt somewhat disappointed. Even for peak king grade secret treasures containing dragon souls, barring special exceptions, they would only be worth tens of millions of astral coins. This was a large order. However, it was still far from the large order that she had anticipated. As for what Xiaoqin said about large quantities, she did not care too much about it. Secret treasures were meant to be used. Cultivators could only use 1 or 2 at most. How large could the quantity be? Even so, Ziying's expression did not change. With her good upbringing, she would not put on a vile expression over such a small matter. However, this time, Ziying had embarrassed herself greatly. The merchant associations of the other 4 city lords would definitely mock her for a long time. Ziying sighed in her heart. Then, she smiled and said, what kind of secret treasures containing dragon souls does young Master Mo need? I'll give you 10 million black astral coins first. Help me purchase them. If you do well, I still have a batch of goods worth tens of millions of black astral coins for you to deal with. Xiaoqin did not know what Ziying was thinking. His tone was calm as he continued speaking. When Ziying heard this, she was slightly stunned even though she was used to seeing big scenes. 10 million black astral coins meant 100 million astral coins. There was still another 100 million black astral coins to sell. Based on Xiaoqian's tone, it sounded like 100 million black astral coins were not enough. This was a huge business deal. After this transaction, the profits from the offerings might be enough for the Nine Cauldron Pavilion to become the second city lord. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Xiaoqin frowned. Dragons were hidden in the depths. The sea hid dragons. It should not be too difficult to collect secret treasures containing dragon souls in the Heavenly Starry Ocean. Ziying smiled and said excitedly, no, absolutely not. Come, let's go down and discuss in detail. Whoosh! Just at this moment, 3 7-colored bridges streaked across the sky at the same time. Heavenly flowers fell from the sky above 10,000 Treasure City, looking like snowflakes drifting in the air. The glazed lights of various colors illuminated the entire sky. Xiaoqin and Ziying, who were about to descend to the palace on the pinky finger, turned their heads to look. They saw a group of outstanding talents accompanying the Lunar Palace's holy daughter outside 10,000 Treasure City. Everyone there had a bright name. The faction behind them could cause clouds and rain in the Southern Sea or even the entire Heavenly Starry Ocean. Whoosh! An even more resplendent and dazzling 9-colored bridge flew through the air, looking very gorgeous. Unexpectedly, the palace on the pinky finger of the treasure master also sent out an invitation, something that was rarely seen. Instantly, the entire 10,000 Treasure City stirred. Everyone forgot about the 7-colored bridge that the 9-cauldron pavilion sent out. Clearly, the treasure master's 9-colored bridge was directed at the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. On the Rainbow Bridge, 8 divine steeds covered in flames pulled ancient war chariots, slowly moving forward. When the people of the other 4 cities saw the people of the treasure master's residence personally coming out, they smiled faintly and tacitly took a step back. They landed at the back of the golden war chariot and went to welcome the holy daughter's group. They glanced at Ziying and a few of them smiled mockingly at her. They laughed at her for making an error in judgment. To think that Ziying treated a grandmaster-level martial sage as a financial backer. What a joke. However, the main character had already changed. The various city lords wanted to rope in the holy daughter's group, but they could not do so. They could only rope in 1 or 2 people. A cold-faced youth with an extraordinary aura rode on the golden war chariot. He crossed the 9-colored rainbow bridge and arrived before the lunar palace's holy daughters group. This cold-faced youth was the treasure master's grandson, Ling. He was now the manager of 10,000 Treasure City. He was currently conversing with the lunar palace's holy daughter. Ziying smiled faintly. Now that she had a major client like Xiao Chen, she did not need to care about what others thought of her. All she needed to do was silently make a fortune. When Xiao Chen saw Fu Hongyao beside the lunar palace's holy daughter, he was mildly startled. If he guessed right, the man beside her should be the strongest person of the Sun Palace's younger generation. Young Master Mo, we should discuss the details of the secret treasures containing dragon souls, Ziying reminded him in a soft voice with a faint smile. Xiao Chen turned his head back and smiled. Let's go, then. In the VIP room of the 5th City Lord's residence, Xiao Chen first asked around about the market for secret treasures containing dragon souls in the heavenly starry ocean, to see if it was as rumored. The results gave Xiao Chen a pleasant surprise. There were hidden dragons in the depths, and the sea hid dragons. This saying was not wrong at all. The secret treasures containing dragon souls in the heavenly starry ocean were much easier to find than in the Kunlun continent. Hence, he had to focus on king-grade secret treasures. I wonder if there will be secret treasures containing true dragon souls in this 10,000 treasure festival. Chapter 1054. Xiao Chen asked with some anticipation. Ziying smiled apologetically and said, I don't think so. True dragons are hard to find and nearly extinct. Naturally, a true dragon's soul is even harder to find. However, I will ask around. It's fine. Xiao Chen waved his hand. He was just asking casually. If there was, it would be a pleasant surprise. If there was none, there was no need to be upset. The two started to discuss the contract. Xiao Chen took out the contract that Ziying made and took a look. There were no loopholes in it, so he signed it and handed the 10 million black astral coins to the other party. Ziying rejoiced. With this deal of 10 million black astral coins, the 9-cauldron pavilion would not have to worry about business for half a year. Ziying put away the contract and the black astral coins and took the opportunity to ask, I heard from young Master Mo that you still have a batch of treasures to sell. How about we settle them together? Don't worry. As long as the 9-cauldron pavilion can help me settle this within one day, I will definitely hand the treasures I want to sell to your merchant association. Naturally, Xiao Chen was not stupid. He had to use something to pressure the other party. Otherwise, if the other party could not do it within one day, he would not be able to deal with it. Ziying smiled and took her leave. Before she left, she called over 2 pretty girls with voluptuous figures to serve Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen waved his hand and got the 2 maidservants to wait outside, waiting for his instructions. Deep into the night, Xiao Chen drew his lunar shadow saber in a cultivation room in the courtyard for honored guests. He calmly executed the flawless saber technique, trying to infuse the will of ice into the 4-season saber technique's winter saber. Logically speaking, Xiao Chen should not be so calm. On the way to the 10,000 treasure sea market, he had consumed and refined a longevity fruit in his hand. As he expected, the longevity fruit only increased his natural lifespan and not his physiological lifespan. It would not be of any help to his current situation. Right now, if the blue dragon body nourishing art was not effective, 10 years would not be laughable at all. Xiao Chen had not reached the peak yet, had not re-established the Dragon's Gate, had not seen everything in this world, and still had many regrets. How could 10 years be enough? It looks like it will work. In the vast underground cultivation room, Xiao Chen revealed a joyful smile as he watched the destructive power of the first fusion of the winter saber and the will of ice. He had always been like this. No matter how many regrets he only had 10 years to live. He just had to face it calmly. Life still had to go on. There was no need to bemoan the state of the universe and pity the fate of mankind. There was no need to be depressed and regretful. In these 12 years, he had walked many paths, met many people, and made countless choices. He had never regretted any of his choices. There was no other reason. As long as he knew what he wanted, there was no need to be so conflicted. Dressed in white, Xiaochen was even colder than the snow. His saber was cold, he was cold, but his heart was not cold. He was sharp and hot-blooded. As Xiaochen's mental state improved, the great perfection saber soul in the will of thunder in his sea of consciousness became increasingly dense. It seemed like it would make another breakthrough soon. Xiaochen casually stabbed his saber into the ground. Then, he started practicing his palm technique, thousand-year flame, amid the heavy snow. This move was Xiaochen's original creation. When he sent out his palm strike, it showed sorrow and joy, parting and reunions, expressing lofty sentiments and hot-bloodedness. He could spread out his comprehensions, his lifetime's lofty sentiments, joy, anger, sorrow, and joy with one palm strike. This palm technique could still evolve in many different ways. Joy, anger, sorrow, joy, parting, and reunions. There should be many more ways. For example, at this moment, Xiaochen thought of parting and the 10-year sorrow. As grief spread through his palm technique clearly deviated from the initial hot-bloodedness, tyranny, and berserk destruction of the thousand-year flame. In its place was a boundless melancholy of parting. A faint grief lingered in Xiaochen's heart, flowing into his every move. The fluttering of his clothes and hair seemed to speak of melancholy. The cycle banner, which was connected to Xiaochen's mind, suddenly unfurled in the universe ring. The astral pearl refined by the grief throne shone brightly. The snowflakes were no longer there. Thousands upon thousands of blood-red remnant flowers drifted in the air. The remnant flowers were like blood, filled with grief. A scarlet moon rose up behind Xiaochen, filling his eyes with a red light. Grief filled everything he saw. Time was like a river, gushing endlessly. There was a moon by the riverside, and a lone boat moved along the river, treading on the moon. Time flowed by. 10,000 years passed. The people on the boat lived and died, changing again and again. Only the moon reigned supreme, only the moon existed. Who saw the moon for the first time by the riverside? When did the moon at the riverside first shine on people? Generations passed by endlessly. The moon at the riverside remained the same every year. Under the illumination of the scarlet moonlight, Xiaochen's white robes looked very eye-catching among the thousands of scarlet remnant flowers, showing a different kind of grief. Thousand-year death, I have a palm strike that speaks only of sorrow, not joy. With this palm strike, Xiaochen scattered all his grief and melancholy. He felt carefree, sweeping away all the knots in his heart. The grief on Xiaochen's body vanished. There seemed to be boundless hope in the faint flowing light, creating all life. Without a sound, even the dust that was tiny to the point it couldn't be seen with the naked eye within the underground cultivation room was transformed into nothingness by this palm strike. The scarlet moonlight vanished, and the withered remnant flowers disappeared. The underground cultivation room was silent and empty, and the air was unprecedentedly fresh. This move shall be called thousand-year death. Xiaochen withdrew his hand and sheathed the saber he stabbed into the ground. Then, he walked out of the cultivation room with a trace of calmness. No matter how much grief or melancholy one felt, they should not remain in one's heart for long. After the grief passed, there would still be a bright sunny day. Otherwise, one would fall into the demonic Tao, blaming heaven and others, walking to the extremes. The instant Xiaochen turned around and left the cultivation room, he did not notice that thousands of flowers silently bloomed in the cultivation room. The remnant flowers lost their scarlet color and turned green, spreading everywhere. When the morning sun rose, Xiaochen closed his eyes and rested for a while. Then, Ziying appeared before Xiaochen with a smile on her face. Young Master Mo, I have already used up all 10 million black astral coins. I have collected a total of 100 king-grade secret treasures and 1,000 sage-grade secret treasures for you. Furthermore, I heard that there will be an emperor-grade secret treasure with a dragon's soul being auctioned during the 10,000 treasure festival. Unfortunately, it is damaged. Xiaochen received the spatial ring that Ziying handed over. Then, he scanned it with his spiritual sense and found that the other party was right. He smiled faintly and said, "Damaged? That suits me. What's the price? I want to buy it at once." Ziying felt somewhat surprised. She did not know why Xiaochen cared so much about a secret treasure with a dragon soul, not even letting go of a damaged one. 2 million black astral coins is simply too high. I have seen that emperor-grade secret treasure. Aside from the dragon soul, it is already damaged beyond recognition. As long as the dragon soul was still there, it was fine. 2 million black astral coins was not a high price. An idea formed in Xiaochen's mind. He smiled and said, "The 9 Cauldron Pavilion is indeed very efficient. They managed to settle everything in one night. It looks like I have to give my goods to Miss Ziying." Ziying felt anticipation in her heart. She had mobilized the entire 9 Cauldron Pavilion in 10,000 Treasure City just to see what goods Xiaochen would take out. Bang! 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 Xiaochen placed 9 jade strips on the table. Then, he smiled gently at Ziying and gestured for her to take a seat. Ziying picked up a jade strip doubtfully and sent in her mental energy. In merely a moment, her expression changed drastically. She quickly put down this jade strip and checked the other 8 jade strips. Ziying was completely stunned. The 9 jade strips actually all contained profound martial techniques. This completely surpassed her imagination. Aside from the 1,000 frost battle snow, which Xiaochen cultivated, he took out all 10 jade strips containing profound martial techniques. Profound martial techniques were existences that surpassed heaven-ranked martial techniques. Regular cultivators would not even have heard of them. They would only appear in the top auctions. The number of profound martial techniques was an important factor that attracted the peak geniuses. Of course, Xiaochen had copied the profound martial techniques in these 9 jade strips. He had copies of them, which he could pass on to others on Heavenly Star Island. It looked like the buyer was at a disadvantage. However, if one did not buy them, many people would fight over them. This was a scarce strategic resource. No matter which sect it was, they would never complain about having more profound martial techniques. The moment they appeared in an auction, they would immediately fetch sky-high prices. There was always a demand but no supply. Ziying's voice trembled somewhat as she asked uncertainly, "Young Master Amo, are you selling all 9 inferior-grade profound martial techniques together?" "Ha ha! If we are not selling them together, why should I take them out?" Xiaochen smiled. "Isn't this nonsense?" Ziying's expression flickered as if she was making a decision. After a while, she said, "Young Master Amo, the rarer something is, the more valuable it is. When there are many of them, they will not fetch a high price. If you auction all these inferior-grade profound martial techniques together, you will not be able to get the highest price. I have a suggestion. I wonder if young Master Mo will consider it." The other party was right. If 9 profound martial techniques appeared at the auction at once, the price would definitely be lower. If there was only one, it might fetch 4 or 5 times the market price, reaching 3 million black astral coins. Xiaochen did not know what Ziying's suggestion was. His expression did not change as he gestured for her to continue. "I think my 9 Cauldron Merchant Association should buy these 9 jade strips at a fixed price and not sell them during this 10,000 treasure festival. There are even larger sea fairs and auctions in Bright Moon City that our 9 Cauldron Merchant Association can handle." Not going through an auction meant that he would not have to wait for a long time. He could immediately obtain black astral coins from the 9 Cauldron Merchant Association. This was not bad. What price is the 9 Cauldron Merchant Association willing to pay? The market price of an inferior grade profound martial technique is 1 million black astral coins. However, everyone knows that it is impossible to buy at this price. The 9 Cauldron Merchant Association is willing to pay 3 times the market price to buy all of them. Ziying smiled faintly and offered a price that Xiaochen could not resist. A single profound martial technique might fetch a sky-high price of 4 million black astral coins. However, if 9 appeared in a row, the price would definitely not be that high. Given this, Xiaochen would not lose out at all. Furthermore, he would not have to wait to obtain black astral coins. Deal. Ziying rejoiced in her heart. She said, "Good. Young Master Mo, please wait for one day. I will have to ask my father about such a large sum of black astral coins. Of course, don't worry. There will definitely not be any problems. I will give that damaged Emperor-grade secret treasure with a dragon's soul to young Master Mo as a gift." As Xiaochen watched Ziying disappear, Ao Jiao said from the Immortal Spirit Ring, "This 9 Cauldron Merchant Association is rather bold. It is a loss to buy them at such a price in the 10,000 Treasure Festival. However, they will definitely make a huge profit in Bright Moon City." Xiaochen smiled. The price of the 9 jade strips somewhat surpassed his expectations. Including the gift, they sold for a total of 30 million black astral coins. Chapter 1055. Including the remaining 10 million black astral coins on hand, Xiaochen now had a total of 40 million black astral coins. With such wealth, even an ordinary emperor would not be as wealthy as him. Without thinking too much, Xiaochen took out secret treasures containing dragon souls one by one and started consuming them, cultivating the blue dragon body nourishing art. Whether he could resolve the problem of 10 years or not depended on this. Otherwise, everything else would be meaningless. After Ziying left, an urgent expression appeared on her face as she quickly rushed to where her father was in closed-door cultivation. After explaining the purpose of her visit to her father, the true leader of 10,000 Treasure City's 9 Cauldron Pavilion revealed a rare expression of excitement. "You did very well." Ziying smiled and said, "However, 30 million black astral coins will empty out the entire 9 Cauldron Pavilion savings. We will not be able to do business for a year." "Ha! That's nothing. The profits from the 9 jade strips will be sufficient to push us to the position of the second city lord. Once we become famous, our luck will increase. Furthermore, the headquarters will definitely give you more benefits. You will even have a chance to compete for the next chief position." Ziying's father appeared very excited, speaking a lot in one breath. Ziying found this strange. "This is our internal transaction. Do we have to pay the treasure master's residence according to the usual quota?" The old man's expression froze. Then, he said gravely, "The treasure master's identity is mysterious. He has more than just the 10,000 treasure sea market. You better not have such thoughts. Otherwise, if you break the rules and cause the 9 Cauldron Pavilion to be chased out of 10,000 Treasure City, only the chief can resolve this. At that time, your future will be over." "Alright, I understand. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore. Take my medallion and go to the treasure pavilion to collect the black astral coins. Also, make sure to give the gifts properly. This person is someone with great luck and is definitely not simple." As Xiaochen consumed a large number of secret treasures containing dragon souls, his cultivation of the blue dragon body nourishing art advanced at a heaven-defying pace. 6 Dragon Force, 7 Dragon Force, 8 Dragon Force, 9 Dragon Force, 10 Dragon Force. Starting from 5 Dragon Force, Xiaochen advanced rapidly until he reached 10 Dragon Force before stopping. After spending tens of millions of astral coins, Xiaochen finally cleared the last minor hurdle of the first layer of the blue dragon body nourishing art. After breaking through the barrier, the blue dragon body nourishing art would break through to the second layer and condense the blue dragon battle armor, greatly increasing its defense. Xiaochen opened his eyes. His eyes were calm. He had finally reached the horrifying level of 10 Dragon Force with a casual strike. Back in the 9 layers of purgatory, he had seen that ghost race expert rely on his physical body to become a great grandmaster level martial sage. Now, he could do it easily. But now, it was clear that 10 dragon strength was not the main point. The main point was the 10 years of lifespan and whether or not his physiological lifespan had improved. After calming himself down, Xiaoqin used the pulse diagnosis technique from the Compendium of Cultivation to check his physiological lifespan. A cold current flowed throughout his body. Xiaoqian's body suddenly turned illusory, and his acupoints shone brightly. To others, Xiaoqin looked like a set of white bones sitting cross-legged, radiating crystalline light. It was not that Xiaoqin had truly turned into a set of white bones. However, this time, when he executed the pulse diagnosis technique more thoroughly, it resulted in a mysterious phenomenon. The light from the bones pierced through his flesh. Boom! After a while, the light faded, and the mysterious phenomenon vanished. When Xiaoqin opened his eyes, he did not see any joy or dismay. The results of the pulse diagnosis technique were both good and bad. The blue dragon body nourishing art was indeed effective. However, the effects were limited. His physiological lifespan had only been extended by 10 years. The aging trend had not been eradicated. I still need the longevity art. I have to find an opportunity to speak to that holy daughter alone. No matter whether I can obtain the longevity art or not, I have to do my best to see if I can exchange for it. However, there is a great perfection expert of the blue-robed emperor beside her. That person will not give me a chance at all. I have to think of a way. Xiaoqin analyzed the situation and made up his mind. If there is no other way, I will use force. No matter what, I have to fight for an opportunity to speak alone. Dong! 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 Footsteps resounded, and the 9 Cauldron Pavilion Seeing arrived with a smile. She pushed open the door and said, "Young Master Mo, sorry for making you wait. Everything is ready." Xiaoqin received the spatial ring that Ziying handed over and carefully counted it. There were 27 million black astral coins, the exact number. There was also the incomplete Emperor-grade secret treasure with a dragon soul as a gift. Xiaoqin also handed over the 9 jade strips to Ziying. When both sides verified that there were no mistakes, they signed the transaction contract, and everything was ready. Ziying was somewhat shocked to discover that Xiaoqian's face did not change at all after receiving such a large sum of black astral coins. She did not even think about it. She really could not figure it out. Xiaoqin looked young, but his mental state was even higher than her father's. Ziying thought of something else. She said, "That's right, young Master Mo, tonight, the young master of 10,000 Treasure City, young Master Yi, is holding a banquet in his residence to entertain the holy daughter. I received an invitation, and young Master Yi specifically asked for you." Young Master Yi was the cold-faced youth driving the ancient golden war chariot. This was the first time Xiaoqin had met him. Why would he specifically invite him to the banquet? Xiaoqin thought for a while but could not figure out the reason. So, he asked Ziying for guidance. "I heard that it is the Lunar Palace's holy daughter's intention." Unexpectedly, young Master Mo has a connection with the holy daughter. "This is really enviable," Ziying said with a smile. "The Lunar Palace's holy daughter, Yu Bingyun's intention." Xiaoqin originally came to 10,000 Treasure City in a low-profile manner. However, the 9 Cauldron Pavilion caused the entire city to know about it. Now, everyone knew that the 9 Cauldron Pavilion made a mistake and was going to make a fool of themselves. For no reason at all, the 9 Cauldron Pavilion was receiving a Grandmaster-level martial sage with the highest form of courtesy. If Yu Bingyun wanted to, she could easily make a connection based on what others said about Xiaoqian's appearance and herself. However, Ziying clearly misunderstood. Xiaoqin did indeed have a significant connection with the holy daughter. However, this connection was not what the other party thought it was. For some reason, the Lunar Palace's holy daughter wanted to meet him. Did she want to confirm his identity before settling the score? Should I go or not? Xiaoqin felt somewhat conflicted. The misunderstanding that day was rather big. Not only did he injure some Lunar Palace female disciples and scold them in front of everyone, but he also messed up the scene of the other party's treatment. "Very well. I'll go with you when it's night." The misunderstanding had to be resolved eventually. As for the longevity art, Xiaochen wanted to talk to her alone for a while, so he quickly made up his mind. Ziying revealed an expression of joy. Originally, she was worried that Xiaochen would not go and upset the young master of 10,000 Treasure City. Now, it looked like she had worried for nothing. In that case, go and make your preparations. I'll come and find you personally. After Ziying left, Xiaochen withdrew his hand with a flip of his palm and took out the damaged Emperor-grade secret treasure with a dragon soul, an ancient sword radiating desolate qi. The blade of the sword was in tatters, with nicks on both sides and cracks spreading out in the middle. Such a sword would probably shatter with just a touch. Whether the secret treasure could be used or not was not what Xiaochen cared about. He sent in his spiritual sense. Within the shattered space, a lethargic dragon soul was lying in a dark corner of the space. It did not move at all, showing no signs of life or fighting spirit. Its eyes were closed as it waited for death. It did not even notice the spiritual sense that Xiaochen sent in. Waiting for death. This was a dragon waiting for death. No, there was no such thing as a dragon waiting for death in this world. Even in death, a dragon's fighting spirit and hot-bloodedness would not stop. This was no longer a dragon soul. It was a worm, not worthy of being called a dragon. Xiaochen could forget about using it to break through the bottleneck of the first layer of the blue dragon body nourishing art. Xiaochen withdrew his spiritual sense. Then, he grabbed the tattered ancient sword and tossed it out of the window, turning it into a beam of light that flew far away. The damaged Emperor-grade secret treasure with a dragon soul was worth 1 million black astral coins. Yet, Xiaochen casually tossed it away without any reluctance. The moon hung high in the sky, and night quietly descended. Xiaochen and Ziying flew in the air, heading for the luxurious palace on the thumb of the statue. This young treasure master Yi Ling is an extremely strong person. However, no matter how strong he is, he still has to be polite to the lunar palace's holy daughter. The two did not move very fast. As they strolled in the air, they chatted idly. Ziying's tone showed some envy for the position of the lunar palace's holy daughter. The lunar palace had a transcendent position, vaguely above the many holy lands. It had ancient inheritances and deep accumulations. After the Dragon's Gate temporarily unified the heavenly starry ocean, the lunar palace's reputation soared. Now, it nearly pushed the lunar palace to the top. Bright Moon City became the center of the entire heavenly starry ocean, connecting the various immortal holy lands. Its position was so important that no one could replace it. However, this treasure master is really mysterious. Even my father is not willing to tell me about his background, Ziying said softly. The treasure master was indeed mysterious. Rumor had it that this person occupied 10 ancient statues similar to this one in the heavenly starry ocean and transformed them into sea markets. The treasure master did not run a merchant association but relied on these sea markets. His annual income was even higher than that of several peak merchant associations. Soon, the two landed in front of the treasure master's residence. There was an endless stream of carriages in front of the gates. All the noble merchants or cultivators in 10,000 Treasure City had probably been invited. Miss Ziying, it has been a long time. How have you been? A man dressed in luxurious clothes and giving off a rich aura walked towards the two of them with a young man with purple eyes. This person had a wide smile on his face, but it gave off an inexplicable feeling of hypocrisy. When Ziying saw this person, she frowned slightly and whispered, "This is the young manager of the Flaming Wind Merchant Association's 10,000 Treasure City, Bai Zhe." The person beside him is the scion of the ancient Gongsun clan, Gongsun Yan. Gongsun Yan was born with the thunder spirit body. He grasps the will of thunder and the will of fire. He has cultivated the Thunder Flame War body and is extremely famous in the Southern Sea. The Flaming Wind Merchant Association's Bai Zhe looked at Xiaochen, and a mocking look flashed in his eyes. Ha! Is this the honored guest of the Nine Cauldron Pavilion? Indeed, hearing about him is not as good as seeing him in person. Miss Ziying has good eyes. I'll take my leave first. You. Ziying could not help feeling flustered at such mockery. Her face flushed bright red. When the masters of the nearby merchant associations heard this, they all laughed loudly. Indeed, Baizé had good eyes. For the sake of such a nameless person, he missed out on all the outstanding talents of the Southern Sea. After this 10,000 treasure festival, the Nine Cauldron Pavilion would probably suffer the consequences of being chased out of its position as the fifth city lord. Gongsun Yan glanced at Xiao Chen, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He wondered if this person was the white-robed man who profaned the holy daughter. Based on Xiao Chen's clothes, figure, and the white fan in his hand, it was most likely him. Chapter 1056. Gongsun Yan, who had been preparing to leave with Baizé, stepped forward. He looked at Xiao Chen and asked, "Might I ask for your great name? Did you appear on Purple Cloud Island half a month ago?" Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Mo Yun, what young master Gongsun wants to ask is whether I was the one who took the holy daughter's pulse half a month ago." "Indeed, it was you. How reckless. You profaned the holy daughter and even dared to appear in our southern sea." Boom! Electric flames flickered in the sky. Gongsun Yan did not say anything more and directly attacked Xiao Chen. Gongsun Yan stepped forward, and electricity flickered on his body. Fire and lightning layered over each other as he threw a palm strike. When Gongsun Yan threw this palm strike, that strand of electric flame in the sky instantly lit up half the sky, making it look like the sun, illuminating a boundless aura. From the moment Gongsun Yan spoke to the moment he stored up his aura and attacked, only one breath of time had passed. With such strength, it was no wonder he did not care about regular Grandmaster-level martial sages. Even if a regular Great Grandmaster-level martial sage came, they would be instantly killed. Gongsun Yan truly lived up to his reputation as an outstanding talent. Everyone exclaimed in shock. Before the boundless electric flame, the white-robed Xiao Chen's fate was already in sight. The electric flame would strike him and burn him to ashes. Xiao Chen smiled coldly. He did not store up his aura or retreat. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he took a step forward as well. Then, Xiao Chen folded the folding fan in his hand and pointed it at the center of Gongsun Yan's ferocious palm strike. Bang! The instant the folding fan clashed with the electric flame palm strike, Xiao Chen did not move back at all. Instead, the one who moved back was Gongsun Yan with his boundless aura. The reason was none other than Gongsun Yan's arrogance. He did not draw a weapon, fighting barehanded. Gongsun Yan thought that with his speed and aura, he could instantly suppress Xiao Chen, leaving Xiao Chen at a loss. However, Gongsun Yan did not know that to Xiao Chen, this bit of aura was nothing. Not only did he not panic, but he also immediately grasped the opening of this move. Not giving the other party a chance to retaliate, Xiao Chen leaped forward with a tap of his feet. Making use of the 2 to 3 seconds before the other party landed on the ground, he launched a flurry of attacks. His folding fan fluttered, his shoulders, his hands, his feet, his hair, all of them were sharp weapons. Before Xiao Chen, who comprehended the flawless saber Dao and had plenty of combat experience, Gongsun Yan was like a child. In just 2 to 3 seconds, he had been beaten into a sorry state. He had suffered multiple blows, and he was in excruciating pain. By the time he landed on the ground, he staggered a dozen steps back. On the other hand, in the eyes of others, Xiao Chen's movements were dazzling. After images overlapped one another, and after his incredibly elegant movements, he stretched out his hand and waved his folding fan. Then, he landed firmly on the ground, appearing calm and unruffled. From start to end, the strength that Xiao Chen displayed was that of an ordinary Grandmaster-level martial sage. However, in this short exchange, he beat up Gongsun Yan like he was a child. The temperament and performance of the outstanding talents could not be seen at all. They were clumsy, pathetic, and unable to withstand a single blow. Who dares to be so unbridled in front of the treasure master's residence? Just as Gongsun Yan was about to erupt with the thunder flame war body and bring out his full strength, a dignified voice came from the treasure master's residence. Whoosh! 4 guards of the treasure master's residence descended from the sky. The old man leading them swept his gaze across the place, and everyone felt a sense of might and pressure in their hearts. This was a blue-robed emperor expert. The one who spoke earlier was him. The moment this person appeared, the raging Gongsun Yen forcefully calmed down. Xiaoqun opened his folding fan and smiled faintly. Brother Gongsun and I were just itching to spar. Senior, please don't misunderstand. The old man snorted coldly. I don't care where you come from or what faction you have behind you. You are absolutely not allowed to make a move in this 10,000 treasure city. After saying that, the old man turned around and left with the guards who extended their hands. Before leaving, the old man gave Xiaoqun a suspicious look. Xiaoqun let the old man look, not minding it at all. A small perfection blue-robed emperor would not be able to see anything wrong with it. Gongsun Yen scattered his aura and looked coldly at Xiaoqun. Don't get cocky. Just wait and see. Xiaoqun found this funny. He really did not get cocky. He had won too easily, there was no sense of accomplishment at all. Young Master Mo, was the person who profaned the holy daughter really you? Ziying asked in disbelief. Xiaoqun smiled and said, it's fine. There is just some misunderstanding between us. I will clear it up at the banquet. It will not bring any trouble to the 9 Cauldron Pavilion. Ziying giggled and said, young Master Mo is overthinking. Our 9 Cauldron Pavilion is considered a peak merchant association in the heavenly starry ocean. Why would we fear this little bit of trouble? However, this little girl really did not expect that there would be someone in this world who is not afraid of death and would dare to profane the holy daughter. Profane? Why does everyone use this word? I did not even touch the other party's hand. Xiaoqun smiled helplessly and stopped explaining. Then, he entered the treasure master's residence with Ziying. The small interlude ended, but the storm was far from over. In just a few moves, Xiaoqun had reduced the outstanding talent Gongsun Yen to a sorry state like a child. He no longer had the air of an expert, appearing clumsy and stupid. Naturally, cultivators with good judgment would not think that Gongsun Yen was only capable of this much. Instead, when Xiaoqun made a move, he completely countered Gongsun Yen. Xiaoqun had predicted the enemy's moves and made judgments in advance. His rich combat experience was clearly displayed in close combat. Although Gongsun Yen had underestimated his opponent and lost the initiative, based on the current situation, even if he had not underestimated his opponent, he would not have gained the upper hand. What was even more unexpected was that the white-clothed man in front of them was actually the person who had been rumored to be the one who had publicly profaned the saintess. There will probably be a good show to watch at the banquet. The Holy Son and Holy Daughter of Zodiac Hall, the Divine Dragon Palace's Hai Tian, the Xia clan Xia Hanfeng, and the Shang Emperor have all been invited. I wonder, where does he get his confidence from? After slapping the faces of the outstanding talents of our Southern Sea's younger generation, he still dares to attend the banquet. The 9 Cauldron Pavilion will probably be implicated as well. Ha! It is best if there is excitement. This year's 10,000 Treasure Festival is indeed somewhat dull. Along with all sorts of discussions, the guests handed over their invitations and entered the treasure master's residence in groups of 2s and 3s. Under the full moon at night, the group walked through the quiet garden and arrived at the brightly lit hall. The banquet had already started there. The famous singers and dancers of 10,000 Treasure City had been invited. Zither music and string music reverberated in the surroundings. The young treasure master of 10,000 Treasure City's long and narrow table was placed in the center. Behind the table, the young treasure master, Yi Ling, sat on a golden jade throne, appearing very tyrannical. Yu Bingyun sat at the first table on the right. Beside her was the mysterious expert Auntie Bai, who never left her side. When Xiaoqun entered with Ziying, he clearly felt Yu Bingyun's gaze on him. However, Xiaoqun did not mind. He smiled faintly and looked back. Previously, he had not seen this girl's appearance clearly due to the white fog and a screen. This time, when Xiaoqun looked seriously, he still felt that the other party's face was obscured by a layer of mist, preventing him from seeing it clearly. Even when Shaoqun infused his spiritual sense into his eyes, he still could not see clearly. However, he did not feel any discomfort. The other party's appearance seemed to appear in his mind easily. However, when he tried to think about it, he could not make any sense of it. This was truly strange. Aside from the holy daughter Yu Bingyun's gaze, Shaoqun also felt several gazes on him after he sat down. Clearly, the commotion at the gates had already reached here. Among them, 3 people caught his attention. With Xi Ying's whispered introduction, Shaoqun gained a rough idea of these 3 people's origins. They were the Southern Sea Divine Dragon Palace's young palace master, Hai Tian. The ancient noble clans Shengguan Yun and the Xia clan's scion, Xia Hanfeng, were the peak outstanding talents of the Southern Sea's younger generation. These people all had extraordinary aspects. They either cultivated 2 wills, cultivated a special combat body, or cultivated a wondrous cultivation technique. If it were before the king conferral ceremony, the Shaoqun of that time would have some reservations when facing these people. Now, however, he did not need to worry too much. Shaoqun had already entered the blue-robed emperor realm and returned to his natural state, becoming one with the world. He had the air of a grandmaster, able to control it as he pleased. Aside from the lunar palace's holy daughter, the only person Shaoqun could not see through was the young treasure master, Yi Ling, who sat in the middle and did not need to hide his tyrannical aura. The banquet had not officially started yet. If it did, the dancers would probably be sent away. Is he waiting for someone? As Shaoqun thought this, he saw the young treasure master Yi Ling stand up from his throne. He revealed a smile and said, "Brother Chu Yang, congratulations on coming out of closed-door cultivation. After this, your name will definitely resound throughout the heavenly starry ocean, bringing honor to our southern sea." There were countless guests here. When the other outstanding talents arrived, the young treasure master only smiled and raised his cup in greeting. Now, for the sake of the Zodiac Hall's holy son, Chu Yang, he stood up alone. This showed how much importance the young treasure master placed on Chu Yang. Outside the door, the Sun Palace's Chu Yang and the Moon Palace's Fu Hongyao entered together. Immediately, everyone's gazes focused on these 2. Shaoqun squinted and sent his spiritual sense into his eyes. He discovered rings of light that could not be seen with the naked eye on Chu Yang's body. Chu Yang was like a blazing sun, radiating light everywhere. If he willed it, he could instantly turn the dark night as bright as day. Chu Yang's cultivation had already broken through the barrier of Grandmaster, reaching Great Grandmaster level martial sage. He was only 1 step away from the blue-robed emperor. Shaoqun thought to himself, calculating the time, that group of outstanding talents of the Kunlun continent should have reached Chu Yang's current cultivation level. Furthermore, in the astral battlefield, the strongest battlefield, Chu Yang's improvement would be even more obvious. However, Shaoqun analyzed the situation in his heart. Aside from the few primes and Emperor Wu's inheritors, no one would be able to defeat this person. Ha! Brother Yi Ling is very considerate. Chu Yang smiled faintly. Then, together with Fu Hongyao, they went to the first table on the left that was reserved for the 2 of them. Yi Ling sat down again and waved his hand, dismissing the dancers. Then, he raised his cup and said, "This time, the Lunar Palace's holy daughter came to my 10,000 treasure city, adding to the glory of this 10,000 treasure festival. This first cup of wine must be offered to Miss Bingyun." The others raised their cups at the same time, swaying as they toasted Yu Bingyun. She smiled faintly and did not put on any pretense. Then, she raised her cup and drained it in one go. Naturally, this second cup of wine must be offered to the most dazzling young outstanding talent of our southern sea, the strongest true inheritor of the Sun Palace, Brother Chu Yang. Congratulations on coming out of closed-door cultivation. Chu Yang smiled faintly, gladly accepting the young treasure master's compliments. Then, he raised his cup and drained it as well. Chapter 1057. No one had any doubts about the order of the young treasure master's toasts. It was only natural that the holy volleyball holy maiden should be the first. Calling Chu Yang the #1 person of the Southern Sea's younger generation would cause the other outstanding talents to feel dissatisfied in their hearts. However, they would not show it. Everyone looked forward to who the young treasure master, Yi Ling, would offer the third cup of wine to. At the beginning of the banquet, the host would only toast 3 cups of wine. These 3 cups of wine represented a person's face, identity, and reputation. Given Yi Ling's status as the young treasure master, these 3 cups of wine were naturally very important. Everyone wanted to be the one toasting the third cup. The prodigies, Hai Tian, Gong Sun Yan, Shengguan Yun, and Xia Han Feng, were all secretly waiting. Although they didn't show it on the surface, they were already unable to restrain themselves. After the second cup of wine was drunk, everyone put down their wine cups and looked at Yi Ling, waiting to see which outstanding talent he would offer this cup of wine to. If there were no accidents, Hai Tian from the Southern Sea Dragon God Palace had the highest chance. After all, he was the legitimate successor of Neptune's old subordinates. Hua! The maidservant standing at the side gently filled Yi Ling's empty cup. Yi Ling picked up his wine cup and smiled faintly. Then, he swept his gaze across the faces of the various outstanding talents. His line of sight was fixed on a person that no one would have expected. This third cup of wine is for young Master Mo Yun, who came from afar. I sincerely hope that young Master Mo will do me the honor of attending the next 10,000 Treasure Festival. To everyone's surprise, Yi Ling's third cup of wine was not for the various outstanding talents. Instead, he chose the unknown Shao Chen. Hai Tian, Gong Sun Yan, and the others, who were filled with anticipation, all revealed expressions of extreme shock and disbelief. Everyone's expressions darkened. After the other 3 city lords, who were trying to rope in the geniuses, immediately understood that it was time for them to step forward. His financial backer had spent the silver from the tournament, and his status and reputation had spread far and wide. They actually didn't manage to get the third cup of wine and let a nameless kid snatch it away. In the future, which prodigy would want to do business with them? This cup of wine, young Master Yi can toast, but some people can't drink. The young managers of the 3 merchant associations stood up at the same time, wanting to tear down the stage in front of all the guests. The Wind Fire Merchant Association is unconvinced. They feel that young Master Mo is not qualified to drink this cup of wine. The Treasure Heaven Pavilion isn't convinced. Not just anyone has the qualifications to drink the wine that young Master Yi offers. The Heavenly Cloud Chamber of Commerce is also unconvinced. Young Master Yi's wine can be toasted, but some people can't drink it. Suddenly, in front of all the guests, the young masters of the 3 chambers of commerce stood up at the same time and mercilessly pulled down Shao Chen's stage. Shao Chen found this strange. Firstly, he had not expected the young treasure master, Yi Ling, to offer this toast to him. Secondly, he could not understand why the young managers of the 3 merchant associations would react so strongly. It was just a cup of wine. If he didn't drink it, so be it. It was no big deal. However, even though he didn't care, Ziying did. Shao Chen was her financial backer and her biggest client. If she didn't stand up for him now, who else would want to work with her in the future? Ziying put down her wine cup and said sullenly, "This is the treasure master's residence. The few of you are really tyrannical, even daring to stop the young treasure master's wine." The Wind Fire Merchant Associations by Zay said coldly, "His origins are unknown, and he is not famous. What will the outstanding talents of my Southern Sea think if we offer this toast to him?" That's right. We do business in 10,000 Treasure City and pay a large amount of taxes to 10,000 Treasure City every year. If the treasure master offers this toast to an outsider, we will be disappointed. The words of the 10,000 Treasure Pavilion's Qin Tian made it clear that the 3 merchant associations stood together, intending to work together to pressure the treasure master. Otherwise, a single merchant association would not have any say against the tyrannical treasure master's residence. The few outstanding talents remained silent. Clearly, they were extremely dissatisfied in their hearts, waiting for the treasure master to give an explanation. Coming to this 10,000 Treasure City, they spent money like it was dirt, seeking fame and profit. Unexpectedly, the young treasure master offered a third toast to an outsider at this banquet. Wasn't this slapping the faces of these outstanding talents? Such a thing happened right at the start of the banquet. The guests were all excited. Such a situation rarely happened. However, the young treasure master, Yi Ling, smiled faintly as if he had expected this long ago. He said calmly, "Young Master Mo completed a transaction worth close to 40 million black astral coins at the Nine Cauldron Merchant Association. As long as anyone can reach half of this amount, they will receive the best reception in 10,000 Treasure City, becoming an eternal honored guest of my 10,000 Treasure City. Furthermore, they will enjoy a 20% discount in the 10 great sea markets of the heavenly starry ocean." The moment Yi Ling said this, the guests in the hall goggled, not daring to believe what they heard. A transaction worth 40 million black astral coins. What kind of a sum was this? Aside from a few special blue-robed emperors, probably no one under Emperor Wu could achieve this. Everyone looked at Xiao Qin in shock. A Grand Master-level martial sage actually completed such a huge transaction. Such a sum was probably the largest transaction in the history of the 10,000 Treasure Festival. The young managers of the three merchant associations stood up. At first, they were shocked. Then, they felt embarrassed. When faced with so many gazes, they did not know how to deal with this situation, unable to advance or retreat. Such a huge transaction was completely worthy of the young treasure master's third cup of wine. Compared to Mo Yun, the transactions of the other outstanding talents were like children playing house. There was no comparison at all. This time, they really stuck their faces out and took the initiative to be slapped. This was a huge embarrassment. Ziying felt incredibly cocky, a smile filling her face. "You mocked me. Now you know who the joke is, right?" Bai Zhe of the Flaming Wind Merchant Association was the first to react. He smiled and said, "Congratulations, young treasure master. This cup of wine should indeed be offered to young Master Mo." The people of the other merchant associations all chimed in. They all stood up and raised their wine cups, toasting Xiao Qin together. Merchants sought profit. They did not care about who could give them benefits or potential benefits. They did not care about face. What was integrity? How much was it worth? Was it worth 10 million black astral coins? Hai Tian and the others paled. They had not expected such an ending. As they looked at the people smiling and toasting Xiao Qin, the rage in their hearts slowly built up. Fu Hongyao whispered something into Chu Yang's ear. A murderous intent flashed in Chu Yang's eyes. Then, he glanced at Xiao Qin with some doubt in his eyes. Xiao Qin calmly accepted the toasts of the others. He raised his wine cup and drained it in one go. Xiao Qin glanced at the Lunar Palace's holy daughter. He could not see her expression clearly. There were no fluctuations, as if she did not care about the matter of that day. However, that blue-robed emperor expert beside her kept staring at Xiao Qin like he wanted to see through him. Xiao Qin's heart sank. With this person around, it would be very difficult for him to meet Yu Bingyun alone. While Xiao Qin thought to himself, the banquet continued. The focus of the banquet was still on Yu Bingyun. Under the direction of someone, the topic shifted to Xiao Qin's blasphemy with the holy daughter on Purple Cloud Island. Yu Bingyun smiled faintly and said that it was a misunderstanding. She told everyone not to mind it, saving Xiao Qin some trouble. "Miss Bingyun, there is still one more year before the Four Seas Hero Gathering begins. I wonder what kind of great gift the Lunar Palace will take out for this gathering." Indeed. Even now, the Lunar Palace is still keeping it a secret. There is no need for it, right? The topic shifted to the topic that the outstanding talents here were more concerned about. They asked about the great gift of the Four Seas Hero Gathering. Yu Bingyun smiled faintly and said, "The Lunar Palace is very sincere about the great gift of this Four Seas Hero Gathering. At this point, there is indeed no need to keep it a secret." Seeing that Yu Bingyun did not intend to hide anything, everyone's curiosity could not help but be piqued. In every Four Seas Hero Gathering, the great treasure that the Lunar Palace took out would make everyone scramble for it. They wondered what kind of great treasure the lunar palace would take out this time. This time, the top treasure that the lunar palace is taking out is a divine rock from another world. This divine rock has a spirit and can suppress luck and change the earth's veins. There is a prime martial emperor writing the words Dragon's Gate on it. The noisy hall immediately turned silent. Wasn't the divine stone that Yu Bingyun spoke of the first-ranked wondrous stone, the heaven-subduing rock? That was the mountain tablet of the Dragon Gate. The two words, Dragon Gate, were written by the Qing Emperor himself. Since the destruction of the Dragon's Gate, the mountain tablet of the Dragon's Gate had been missing for 10,000 years. Unexpectedly, it was in the hands of the lunar palace. But thinking about it, it made sense. This mountain tablet was newly erected after the Dragon's Gate unified the heavenly starry ocean. After the Dragon's Gate was destroyed, the lunar palace rose up. It was reasonable that the lunar palace obtained this mountain tablet of the heavenly starry ocean. As for the mountain tablet of the Kunlun Dragon Sect's headquarters, after the fall of the Qing Emperor, the mountain tablet was immediately destroyed by his enemies. This was the only one of the Dragon's Gate's mountain tablets that had been lost outside. Great waves surged in Xiao Chen's heart. However, aside from the initial shock, he quickly recovered. This was because a pair of eyes noticed him immediately. The owner of those eyes was the Sun Palace's Chu Yang, whom even Xiao Chen somewhat feared. Hong Yao, although this person's origins are unknown, he uses a strange weapon. Furthermore, he is only a great grandmaster level martial sage. I'm afraid that you really got the wrong person. I am not completely confident either. It is just a feeling. As for the exact situation, we still have to test him out before we can know. I understand. If it really is him, I will definitely make him pay a painful price in this treasure master's residence. The two sent voice projections to each other, exchanging their opinions of this Mo Yun. Both of them suspected the other person. However, this Mo Yun used a folding fan, which was very different from the saber that Xiao Chen used. Although Fu Hongyao had a strong intuition, he still did not dare to be sure. Regardless of the two's secret conversation, everyone in the hall was extremely shocked at the lunar palace's gift. The heaven-subduing rock and the Dragon's Gate's mountain tablet. This gift was something that no one could have imagined even if they racked their brains. After tonight, the news of the Dragon's Gate's mountain tablet as the gift would spread throughout the entire heavenly starry ocean like the wind. This would make the Four Seas Hero Gathering 1 year from now even more eye-catching, reaching an unprecedented peak. Xiao Chen's thoughts raced. Initially, he had no interest in the Four Seas Hero Gathering. Now, he could not help entering deep thought. I wonder, who does Miss Bingyun think will be able to suppress all the outstanding talents in this Four Seas Hero Gathering, stand out, and take the top spot to receive the gift? Yu Bingyun smiled faintly and said, right now, this is an age of geniuses. The heavenly starry ocean is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. How could Bingyun dare to make such a judgment? Chapter 1058. I feel that our Southern Sea's young Master Chu has great hope. There have always been rumors that young Master Chu cultivates in the sun. I wonder if that is true. Someone threw the question to Chu Yang. Immediately, everyone's gaze turned to Chu Yang. That's right. The Zodiac Hall dominates the Southern Sea. The Sun Palace only accepts elites as disciples. Furthermore, young Master Chu is an elite among elites. After coming out of closed-door cultivation, you will definitely gain something. Chu Yang's expression did not change. He smiled calmly and said, it is true that I cultivate in the sun. However, the cultivation places of the outstanding talents of the Heavenly Province Academy, the Five Poison Sect, the Yin-Yang Paradise, the Myriad Fiend Island, and the other holy lands are not much inferior to mine. How is that an advantage? Suddenly, Chu Yang's tone changed as he casually glanced at Xiao Chen. After a pause, he said, today, all the outstanding talents of the Southern Sea are here. It is rare for us to gather here. How about we exchange moves before the Four Seas Hero Gathering? That way, we can improve together. Young Master Chu's suggestion is pretty good. This is a good opportunity to see the strength of the various outstanding talents. The 4 C's Hero Gathering is about to begin. I believe the many outstanding talents are already prepared. As soon as Chu Yang's voice fell, there was an endless stream of responses. The banquet immediately turned lively. In the world of cultivators, fighting was always something that made people's blood race. This was especially so for the many outstanding talents here. The fights would definitely be very exciting. Brother Yi Ling, what do you think? Chu Yang looked at the young treasure master. After all, this was the treasure master's residence. He needed to seek his permission before doing anything. Yi Ling smiled and said, I have no objections, as long as the holy daughter does not mind. Yu Bingyun frowned slightly. She vaguely felt that Chu Yang's words targeted Mo Yun. After hesitating for a while, Yu Bingyun said, it is fine to stop when necessary. Don't get caught up in a conflict of emotions. Actually, even if she did not say this, Yu Bingyun knew that it would be pointless. However, the young treasure master and Chu Yang both wanted to test Mo Yun. Even if she tried to stop them, the two would have other excuses. Later, if there are any accidents, Auntie Bai, please keep an eye on him. Don't worry, I have been watching him. Yu Bingyun sent a voice projection to Auntie Bai. It was still unclear whether this Mo Yun was the person she was looking for or not. She did not wish for anything unexpected to happen. However, he didn't know that this would cause Xiao Chen to misunderstand him even more. Xiao Chen thought that Auntie Bai was fixated on him because she still remembered what happened on Purple Cloud Island and could only use force. The young treasure master, Yi Ling, smiled faintly and said, in that case, let's stop here. I also want to see how much Brother Chu Yang's strength has improved after coming out of closed-door cultivation. Chu Yang was non-committal and did not answer the question directly. He said, there will be a chance. Let's see how other friends perform first. Brother Gongsun seems to be ready for battle. Gongsun Yen looked at Xiao Chen and walked to the center of the square. He said coldly, that's right. Earlier outside the treasure master's residence, this one's exchange with young master Mo is far from satisfying. Mo Yun, since young master Chu has spoken, do you dare to spar with me again? At this moment, Xiao Chen was thinking of some plans. When he heard this, he had an idea. He stood up, opened his folding fan, and walked to the center of the arena. He used his actions to answer Gongsun Yen. Seeing Xiao Chen step forward, a fighting spirit blazed in Gongsun Yan's eyes. He had suppressed the humiliation outside the city lord's residence for a long time. Without saying anything, Gongsun Yen put on a pair of black gold gloves. Then, electric light flashed as he charged at Xiao Chen. This time, Gongsun Yen did not hold back at all. He left behind a clump of lightning-attributed fire where he stood, and his body moved in an instant, vanishing from where he was. It was a simple move, but it had the explosive speed of lightning and the destructive power of flames. This move was not fancy. It relied on speed and ruthlessness. In this space that was not too vast, it held a great advantage. Under such circumstances, a regular Great Grandmaster level martial sage would be caught off guard and defeated in one move. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm as he watched Gongsun Yan, who had vanished from everyone else's sight. However, Gongsun Yan's movements appeared in slow motion in Xiao Chen's eyes. He could clearly see the trajectory of Gongsun Yan's body and the openings in his footwork. In the time it took for a spark to fly, Xiao Chen moved. His body also vanished from the eyes of the weaker people. Bang! 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 The sounds of intense fighting rang out in the air. Gongsun Yan's figure appeared, flying back while vomiting blood. Xiao Chen moved like a ghost, moving forward again. He thrust his folding fan, and Gongsun Yan flew back again, crashing into the steps of Yi Ling's table. In the eyes of ordinary people, the scene was very simple. It was just the two disappearing one after another. Then, Gongsun Yan appeared in midair with a flourishing aura. Gongsun Yan was mysteriously defeated, vomiting blood. Then, he suffered a ruthless strike from Xiao Chen, severely injuring him and rendering him unable to get up. However, to the experts present, the scene was not like this. The two fought with speed, exchanging 10 moves in an instant. Every move was hair-raising, able to decide victory and defeat, deciding life and death. The intensity of this fight was no less than a great battle of 1,000 moves. Of the 10 moves, Gong Sun Yan only managed to attack once before falling into defense. After doing his best to block 3 of Xiao Chen's moves, he could no longer block another. The folding fan fluttered, the bone-chilling cold wind. Every strike was horrifying. Gong Sun Yan suffered 7 moves in a row. How could he not be defeated in such a sorry state? Confusion appeared in Chu Yang's eyes. The strength that this Mo Yun before him displayed was indeed that of a grandmaster-level martial sage. However, his combat experience and techniques were much higher than Gong Sun Yan's. Hence, Gong Sun Yan lost so decisively that everyone thought that he did not even last one round. Could it be that he really is not that person? Chu Yang thought to himself. Whoosh! Xiao Chen opened his folding fan and smiled faintly. With just this much, you dare to call yourself an outstanding talent? You had better not go to the Four Seas Hero Gathering. Even if you do, you will just embarrass yourself. The Southern Sea is merely a so-so. How arrogant! I, Xia Hanfeng, will test you out. When the scion of the Xia clan, who was also a noble clan, saw Mo Yun's arrogance, he soared up and pressed towards Xiao Chen. After learning from Gong Sun Yan's lesson, Xia Hanfeng fought steadily. He used the Xia clan's cultivation technique to imitate the might of the heavenly Tao. As he slowly descended, he threw a palm strike. It was like the hand of heaven smashing down heavily. Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. This was the first time he saw such a martial technique. To think that Xiao Chen could imitate the might of the heavenly Tao. Unfortunately, he was still lacking. His cultivation had not reached the level of great grandmaster-level martial sage, so he was not a threat to Xiao Chen. Thousand Frost Battle Snow, Unyielding Pride. Xiao Chen opened his folding fan and used a profound martial technique as well. His arrogance soared, not fearing heaven or heaven. This mysterious state happened to counter Xia Hanfeng's move, Heaven's Hand. This forced Xia Hanfeng, who was about to press down, back. Xiao Chen's soaring arrogance suppressed the might of heaven. Without the might of heaven, this move naturally broke. Xiao Chen soared up and clashed with Xia Hanfeng in midair. With every move, he successfully dragged Xia Hanfeng into his rhythm. It looked like Xia Hanfeng was forced into a sorry state by Xiao Chen, about to follow in Gong Sun Yan's footsteps. The Divine Dragon Palace's Hai Tian and the Shangguan noble clan's Shangguan Yun, who were still muttering to themselves, shouted coldly and attacked at the same time, trying to help Xia Hanfeng out of his predicament. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. They came at the right time. Since they were willing to take the initiative to make a move, it saved him some trouble. A chaotic battle broke out, turning the place into an intense battle between 4 people. The 3 outstanding talents of the Southern Sea actually had to make a move at the same time to suppress Xiao Chen. Yi Ling, who sat in the middle, showed a sullen expression. Xiao Chen's strength somewhat surpassed his expectations. Chu Yang felt somewhat anxious. Even at this point, he still had not seen the martial technique that Mo Yun used. He did not know what it had to do with Xiao Chen. Did I really mistake him? Just at this moment, something strange happened. The aura of Xiao Chen, who was being suppressed by the 3, suddenly soared, reaching great grandmaster-level martial sage. Clearly, it was not realistic to use grandmaster-level martial sage to defeat these 3. That way, Xiao Chen's plan would not succeed. Only by raising his strength further would he have a chance. When facing Xiao Chen, whose strength suddenly soared, Hai Tian and the other 2 were caught off guard. The first to suffer was Xia Hanfeng. He was sent flying by Xiao Chen's palm strike, knocking over 3 tables in a row. Amidst the clanging sounds, figures flew everywhere, and the place immediately became somewhat chaotic. Bang! Xiaochen sent out another palm strike, and Shengguan Yun went flying. A strong wind blew from his body, spreading everywhere. The place turned chaotic. With the final punch, the Divine Dragon Palace's High Tian flew back like a meteor by Xiaochen. The friction between his body and the air gave off a piercing sonic boom. The direction High Tian flew in was where the Lunar Palace's holy daughter was. Auntie Bai's expression changed slightly. Given High Tian's speed, if he crashed into the holy daughter, she would definitely be injured. Auntie Bai moved at lightning speed, wanting to block High Tian. The hall fell into complete chaos. A strong wind blew, and the heavenly might spread out, affecting all the guests. As everyone made their moves, the situation became even more chaotic. All this happened in just 2 breaths. Xiaochen took advantage of the opening when Auntie Bai attacked to move and restrain Yu Bingyun at lightning speed. Xiaochen used his heavenly laws to drive the power of the world. With a suppressive advantage, he instantly sealed Yu Bingyun's strength, preventing her from executing her abilities. Don't move. I just have some business with you. I won't hurt you. Xiaochen hoisted Yu Bingyun on his shoulder and leaped out of the hall. With a few flashes, he unfurled the freedom wings and vanished from the treasure master's residence. The hall was as chaotic as ever. Loud sounds rang out endlessly. Auntie Bai had just caught the flying High Tian. The other party was the Divine Dragon Palace's young palace master. Furthermore, Auntie Bai was not a decisive person, so she did not want to injure High Tian. Who knew, the moment Auntie Bai landed, Yu Bingyun disappeared from her side. Seeing Xiaochen carry Yu Bingyun away just like that, Chu Yang and Yi Ling were flabbergasted. What was going on? How could the bona fide Lunar Palace's holy daughter be carried away like that? Bang! With the holy daughter captured, how could Auntie Bai care so much? She casually tossed High Tian to the side. Auntie Bai unleashed a strong aura and charged forward. Her body merged with the heavens. When she took a step forward, the world moved with her. The cultivators in her way were all knocked into a mess, tumbling everywhere. Yi Ling and Chu Yang reacted. Their faces sank at the same time as they soared into the air and quickly gave chase. In a moment of desperation, the aura that the two burst out with was actually no weaker than the small perfection blue-robed emperors. The two exchanged glances. They could tell that the other had held back. Their true strength was not as simple as it looked on the surface. However, at this moment, this matter was urgent. There was no time to overthink. Chasing after the person was more important.